Part 49. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 491. Stop pretending to be asleep. Under the sudden light, Shirley's eyes would tremble unconsciously even if they were closed. In addition, the other party's emotional fluctuations also made Luo Guang realize that the other party was pretending to sleep. Shirley has been out of society for a long time and has no scheming thoughts, so she doesn't consider whether the other party is deceiving her. She opened her eyes immediately, holding back tears, gritted her teeth, and looked at the man in front of her angrily. Although she heard a female voice talking before, she didn't know if the person had changed before, so she had no idea that the middle-aged man in front of her was one of hers. Shirley didn't curse or do anything, she just looked at the stranger in front of her with vigilance. Holmes' clone took out the key to the handcuffs. With tearful eyes, Shirley noticed the keychain in the other person's hand and began to think about how to steal the key. At the same time, her body was trembling slightly, feeling scared and nervous about what the other person was going to do next. Wait, Luo Guang forgot important things and controlled his clone to call Claire. Shirley didn't recognize her clone, so she rashly unhooked Shirley's shackles and tore off the tape on her mouth. If the other person ran around and screamed, it would be troublesome. So he planned to contact Claire and the others first so that Shirley could confirm whether his identity card was a good person. However, Claire was driving her motorcycle and didn't hear the phone ringing at all, nor did she notice the vibration of the phone. There was no other way. Luo Guang could only ask the clone to change the number and dial Lion's number. Shirley saw the man in front of her making a phone call without caring about her, but she felt more and more frightened. This shows that the other party is not worried at all about the information being leaked to him. Then his next end will definitely not be much better. Thinking of this, she could no longer hold back her tears. Leon had returned to the DSO Temporary Command Center and began to direct his men to deal with the biological crisis. When he saw the unfamiliar call, he answered it without hesitation. "Hey, who is it? Is it Leon?" Who? Leon didn't recognize the other person's voice, so he was even more surprised why the other person called him so affectionately. "I have Shirley in my hand." Luo Guang thought for a while and felt there was an ambiguity, so he controlled the clone and added, "I hope you understand me, Ba." He almost followed the joke about picking up children before time travel. Leon looked shocked and said quickly, "Don't hurt her." "What do you want?" Although it was strange that the robbers took so long to kidnap Shirley and then called to demand ransom, it must have been Shirley who knew her private mobile phone number. Coupled with concerns about Shirley's safety, he did not doubt the identity of the other kidnapper. Sure enough. Luo Guang suppressed a smile, controlled the Holmes clone, cleared his throat, and said, "You misunderstood me. I am the private detective sent by Luo Guang to help you." Leon couldn't take back the shocked look on his face, and even forgot to reply to the other party's words for a while. Shirley was stunned as if she were petrified. She didn't expect that the other party was actually Luo Guang's friend. The man unlocked her handcuffs and explained the situation at the same time. Finally, the other party gave her the key and asked her to unlock the shackles on her feet and remove the tape. She took the key and burst into tears with joy. Leon was brought back to his senses by Shirley's cry. He couldn't hide his happiness at all, and said with a smile, "Where are you? Why is Shirley crying? Is she hurt?" Among the happy people was Jack, who immediately cheered. Shirley's hands and feet were tied and stuffed into the trunk. She was just released. She didn't seem to be injured. She was probably just agitated. Then Holmes roughly told what happened, and said, "The enemy was also captured by me. Did you come to pick up Shirley, or did I bring everyone here? Are you in the town of Bethlehem?" It happens to be the direction Claire chose. Leon couldn't help but feel very lucky. If his nose hadn't been sharp enough, he would never have noticed Wang Fengjiao's weirdness, and Holmes wouldn't have recognized him either. Moreover, if the enemy had walked all the way and not stopped in a small town to refuel, things would not be happening now. As for Claire, although she chose the right direction, if the other party didn't stop, she might not be able to catch up. Even if she did, there was a possibility of passing him by. Even if Wang Fengjiu is found in the end, it is still unknown whether she can win against two. That's right, Holmes' clone told the other party his location, and then said, I called Claire at first, but she didn't answer the phone. Leon expressed his guess, she was driving her motorcycle so fast that she might not have noticed the phone ringing. Claire indeed drove all the way as Leon thought, raised the front of the car onto the steel plate behind the truck, jumped directly, and flew across the level like a stunt motorcyclist. She didn't know the information about the car driven by the enemy, but she felt that with Concord City being blocked, there shouldn't be many cars on the road, so it would give her a chance to look for it. Claire tried chasing a car again to confirm the appearance of the driver, and finally shook her head and sighed. The driver is not the person in the portrait. She temporarily parked the car on the side of the road and took out her mobile phone to check if there was any latest news from Leon, but she saw an unfamiliar missed call. But the other party didn't call again, so she thought the other party might have dialed the wrong number, so she didn't care. Claire dialed the phone number to call Leon. The number she dialed was also Leon's private number, so she naturally got a busy reply. She wondered whether to wait for Leon's message, worried that she might miss Shirley's message if she ran around all the way. The boat will naturally straighten itself when it reaches the bridge. Time is tight, so Claire chose to keep her phone close to her and continue on the road. This way she won't be afraid of missing the call. After Leon and Holmes ended the call, he immediately called Claire. However, the road was bumpy, and coupled with the slight vibration of the motorcycle engine, Claire missed the call again. Luo Guang's Holmes clone hung up the phone. He and Leon had already discussed the next plan. Leon first asked Claire to go to Bethlehem to meet the two of them, and then go back to Concord together. He was worried that Holmes was alone, and he had to protect Shirley and watch two enemies at the same time, so he would not care about both ends and let the enemy reverse the defeat. Shirley untied the shackles on her feet and stood beside Holmes. She also talked to Leon on the phone for a few words. The other party asked her to follow Holmes and said that he could be trusted. There is no writer named Conan in this world, so naturally there is no book like the detective collection of Sherlock Holmes. Rather than trusting Holmes, Leon trusted Luo Guang. Uncle Watson, shall we wait here next? Yes, let's wait here. But if other people come here to refuel and see the two tied up people, will it cause misunderstanding? Luo Guang thought quickly and answered the other party almost in the next second, it depends on you to explain it. He told Shirley, you are a child abducted by human traffickers, and I am a private detective who is brave enough to do what is right. Shirley nodded and took note of the other party's words carefully. I'll go check on the two people, and punch them when they wake up. However, just when Holmes' clone turned around to go back to his car roared with the engine. The two guys who were caught before had woken up. They took advantage of the opportunity when Holmes's clone rescued Shirley and called, untied the ropes that bound them, stole a car and ran away. Neither of them had ever fought the enemy, so they didn't think about revenge and Shirley's affairs. Saving their lives was the most important thing. The confidentiality of their organization was a higher priority than the mission they were carrying out, so in order not to be caught again, it was a better choice to choose to run away directly. Holmes. They ran away. Shirley pointed at the car that was driving away quickly and said. Their car stopped here to refuel before. Even if I drove their car to chase them, I couldn't chase them far. Holmes acted very calmly and said the reason for his indifference. In fact, the clone also carried an Adams revolver. With his ability, he could naturally empty the bullets and blow up the opponent's tires in 1 second when the opponent drove away from the gas station. Even as long as he gave an order, he could make the opponent drive back to him and surrender. But he didn't do this because he wanted to play a long game. According to the information sent to him by Leon, the Beekeeper organization was involved in this incident. Luo Guang has a strong interest in this organization that has no intelligence in the game, so when the enemy is unconscious, he uses his clone to inject the Shinra virus into the enemy's body. Luo Guang, who has gained the ability to perceive emotions, is now using his clone to obtain the other party's thoughts, such as whether the other party chooses to give up the mission directly in order to protect the secrets of his organization. Wang Fengjiao and Xiaoying have no recollection of what the secret of the organization is, but Xiaoying recalls the name of the organization, Organization X. Although Simmons' family organization is also called Organization X, Luo Guang does not think they are the ones who kidnapped Shirley. In fact, the letter X sometimes means unknown or experimental, so it is normal for other organizations to use the same name for convenience. But Luo Guang actually has an answer with a 90% probability in his heart. The real name of this organization X is the Apocalypse Organization. In addition to Wang Wei saying that their organization was called Organization X outside, there are a group of people in this Apocalypse organization with the surname Wang. In Harlan City, he solved Wang Qianglin of the Apocalypse organization and let Kellan go. Speaking of clan, the other party has not contacted Luo Guang since then, and it is unknown what the other party is doing now. Shirley, do you want to go eat something? Holmes retracted his gaze and looked at Shirley. Don't we have to wait for Claire to come? Shirley said so, but her stomach was rumbling after she finished speaking. Her cheeks flushed, thinking that this was too embarrassing. Holmes said, I will ask Leon first, and tell him that the enemy ran away. Regarding the escape of the captured prisoner, Leon only asked for details and confirmed the means of escape. Their original mission was to rescue Shirley, so protecting Shirley was the most important thing. Claire, have you contacted her? I have contacted her, and she will be here soon. Claire stopped the car again, took out her mobile phone and saw Leon's missed call, so she called back quickly. This time Leon did not answer other people's calls, and the two sides were finally able to exchange information. Claire finally put down her heart when she learned that Shirley was rescued. The car was driving at over 200 before, but now it has slowed down, and I am more careful about my driving safety. Okay, let's wait a little longer, Shirley is hungry. Uncle Holmes, you don't need to tell Leon this. Shirley jumped up anxiously when she heard this. Sorry, I'm your brother. Luo Guang controlled his clone and teased Shirley. In less than half an hour, Claire finally met up with Shirley and the others. Shirley. Claire. The two hugged and cried, and Claire looked left and right, and kept caring about Shirley, worrying that she would be hurt by the kidnappers. Luo Guang did not disturb them. After the two of them vented their emotions and gradually calmed down, he controlled his clone to move forward. Claire let go of Shirley, and with a tearful face, she held Holmes' hand and said, Thank you. You're welcome, Shirley will be in your hands. I have other things to do. What is it? Claire said, if there is anything I can help with, just let me know. Holmes shook his head and said, I'm a private detective. Other cases involve the privacy of the client. Okay, if you come to Concord in the future, please let me know and I'll treat you to a meal. Thank you, Brother Holmes. Shirley stepped forward, hugged Luo Guang's clone, and then waved goodbye to him with Claire. While waiting for Claire, the clone was not idle. He tidied up the car of Wang Fengjiao and the other two, added gas, and then stepped on the accelerator to spray Shirley and the other two with exhaust gas. The next thing this clone had to do was to track Wang Fengjiao and the other two and confirm the location of the enemy base. Although the two sides were already far apart, with the Shinra virus assisting in tracking, the two could not escape Luo Guang's Five Fingers Mountain at all. Regarding this matter, he could have pretended to install a tracker and asked Leon and others to help, but he finally decided to go into this dangerous place alone. Luo Guang didn't know the specific strength of the Apocalypse organization, but as a huge organization that could hide under the nose of the X organization, Luo Guang didn't think that the other party was a waste like the Greyhound organization. If the clone was gone, it was gone, but if the enemy had any secret means, Leon and Claire would easily suffer. When these two heard that there was intelligence about the base of the kidnappers of Shirley, they would definitely come in person. Luo Guang, who was far away in Africa, tapped his fingers on the desk and thought. The base that Wang Fengjiao returned to should be just a small base or a safe house, and there was no need to send so many people. After he found out the main bases of the enemy, it was time for him to make a list and find people to start a group and defeat the Apocalypse organization. Meow, thank you for subscribing and voting meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Meow. Chapter 492. Holmes' clone drove all the way to Boston, where the other party finally stopped escaping in the city. However, the clone did not go directly to trouble Wang Fengjiao and the others. He changed his clothes first and had a full meal before heading to the enemy's location. The current avatar looks like an English gentleman. The cane has been replaced by a gentleman's stick. He no longer pretends to be Lame. The previous detective uniform and detective hat were directly destroyed by him. He was sitting in a cafe, looking at the commercial building across the road. The enemy is hiding there. The closer he is to Wang Fengjiao and the others, the better the accuracy of his perception, and the enemy's location is on the 16th floor in the middle of the building. The Red Emperor quickly sent Luo Guang the architectural drawings of the building. He glanced at it, then picked up the bag on the floor, paid and left the cafe. Naturally, there is security in this kind of commercial building, but with the help of the Red Emperor, Luo Guang quickly found the customer reservation information of one of the companies, so he asked the clone to pretend to be a customer and successfully passed the security check. There were many people in the elevator, but no one said anything. People on several floors left the elevator. By the time we reached the 16th floor, there was only one Holmes clone left. He walked out of the stairs with a bit of nobility in his demeanor, attracting the attention of people outside the elevator door. This floor was purchased separately by a decoration design company as an office building. Judging from the company information investigated by Hong Huang, there are no Chinese employees in this company, which is inconsistent with Luo Guang's impression of the Apocalypse organization. The two beautiful receptionists looked at Holmes through the transparent glass door and whispered. One of the people wearing a black and blue suit with a manager badge on his chest came over. He introduced himself. Hello, distinguished gentleman. I am the reception manager of the company here. How can I help you? The other party was very discerning and could see the personality of Luo Guang's clone. I'm looking for someone. Oh? Do you know a designer? Before Holmes could answer, the other party said quickly, Oh, I'm such a pig. Please come in, sir, and we'll have a long talk inside. The reception manager who followed Holmes had a look of cruelty on his face. He didn't expect Wang Fengjiao's enemies to actually follow him all the way. Come this way, the reception manager then walked to the front to show Holmes the way. Holmes followed the other person through the office area and suddenly stopped. The reception manager secretly thought it was bad because the other party stopped right in front of the secret room where Wang Fengjiao and the two were hiding. Wang Fengjiao had changed all their clothes and confirmed that no trackers were implanted in their bodies, so he was very surprised that the other party could confirm the exact location of the two people. Sir, what's wrong? The reception manager concealed his surprise very well. His tone and speed did not change, he just gave other people in the office a look when he spoke. The employees at the desk got the signal, and while looking at Holmes, they reached around the desk and pulled out a dark pistol. Holmes turned his back to everyone, looked at the huge painting on the wall, and asked his question, who is this painting? 3 hours ago, Wang Fengjiao and Xiaoying arrived at the transit point of the Apocalypse organization. Usually the space is an ordinary company, and its members are basically formal organizational members. The money earned by the company will be handed over to the organization for unified use after excluding all necessary costs. Over the years, this stronghold has not experienced a single mission and has always remained in a latent state. So after learning that Wang Fengjiao and the others had arrived, everyone was very excited, feeling excited that they could finally participate in the mission. They had also provided intelligence and equipped weapons for the two of them before. Now the two people came back in embarrassment, surprising everyone, and immediately launched an emergency plan. After changing their clothes, the two hid in the secret room and waited for the confidentiality period to end. This confidentiality period was because they were worried that the two would be tracked to the real base of their organization, so they had to wait at this transit base for a period of time to ensure that no one was following them. After the confidentiality period ends, they can leave the transit base and return to the real apocalypse base. The two took off their clothes and threw them all into a special machine for crushing. Then they took out brand new clothes from the vacuum bag and put them on. Xiaoying put on denim shorts, showed off her long legs, and asked, "Sister Wang, will that enemy come after you?" They didn't communicate much during the whole escape, but now that they were in a temporarily safe place, they discussed it with lingering fear. Wang Fengjiao tied up her high ponytail and said, "Probably not. The other party just watched us running away. I think his purpose is just Shirley." Xiaoying put on small underwear, and more questions arose in her mind, saying, "The other person is Shirley's helper? Then how did he know about us? And found our location?" Wang Fengjiao didn't know any of these things, but not being able to answer any of them was too inferior and failed to reflect her dignity as a senior. So after thinking for a while, she said, "I feel like we did something wrong. Judging from this, we took the initiative to find each other." Xiaoying recalled for a while and said, "It was indeed us who struck first. But Sister Wang, you actually guessed that the other party was an enemy, and it was too great to choose to strike first. It was just that we misjudged the opponent's strength." Wang Fengjiao took advantage of the other party's words and immediately changed the subject, saying, "Yes, the main reason is that the enemy is too strong." She was injected with the agility enhancement potion used by the Apocalypse organization, but her speed was completely inferior. This is not scientific. Xiaoying, do you still remember the other party's appearance? The members of the Apocalypse organization have good recognition ability and can remember the faces of people they meet. I will draw the other party's appearance now. Xiaoying asked someone to bring a pen and paper, and immediately drew a portrait of Holmes, which looked 95% similar. Wang Fengjiao picked up the sketch, confirmed that it was the same as what she remembered, and said, "Send this to the headquarters and let the organization collect information about this guy. I suspect that this may be an adapter above level A." When Xiaoying heard this, she began to calculate the points in her heart. Shirley is a level B adapter, which means that she may be compatible with 2 or more viruses. And the enemy has reached the level of level A in terms of physical fitness, which is just a conservative estimate. Wang Fengjiao is a member of the B and level. After using the enhancer, her combat power has reached the edge of the A level, so it is estimated that Holmes' clone is at least a level. The level difference between B and A does not seem to be big, but the importance to the Apocalypse organization is very different. Just providing intelligence and verifying it can get the same points as completing the task of capturing Shirley. On the other hand, Xiaoying also felt a little pity. She didn't know who would catch this big fish and get big points in the end. After the two of them ate something and rested for a while, the alarm suddenly sounded. The person in charge of monitoring and tracking the situation used the surveillance in the lobby on the first floor to find that the person in the portrait came to this commercial building. Although Holmes changed his clothes, he was wearing a hat, which was basically the same as the portrait, so the alarm was sounded. "Sister Wang, why don't we take this opportunity to catch him? Wang Fengjiao glanced at the other party and said, "Do you have any misunderstandings about the A-level? What's the use of those ordinary people outside?" She knew that the other party cared about the points very much, which was related to whether she could graduate from the training center. Xiaoying is not stupid. The school has also seriously explained the gap between B-level and A-level, but in general, people who have received professional combat training are still able to fight against A-level. So she said her own method, anesthesia gun, if a group of people shoot, he can't dodge. Then can't we catch the opponent? Well. Wang Fengjiao was a little tempted by Xiaoying's words, but the risk is still too great. She replied, "If the enemy catches up with us, we can try it, otherwise forget it." The defending party is often more likely to gain an advantage, as long as the sneak attack is successful, the opponent can be captured. Telling this to the people at the transit base, everyone is very excited. The person in charge of the base, that is, the boss of the company, also approved this matter after thinking it over again and again. He is the only official staff of the transit base. He will naturally leave after his term of office. There is no need to accompany Wang Fengjiao and others to go crazy and find A-level adapters to fight. But if the enemy comes, that is another matter, so it is also a good choice to prepare for dealing with A-level enemies in advance. After preparing everything, the two people in the secret room began to whisper again unconsciously. Are anesthetics dangerous? Yes or no? If it was the previous danger perception ability, perhaps the alarm would not be triggered. But now the emotions can allow Luo Guang to sense the changes in the emotions of those behind him through the clone. The clone used this ability to know the timing of Wang Fengjiao's sneak attack from behind at the self-service gas station. In addition, he can also sense the thoughts of Wang Fengjiao and the others, so the enemy's sneak attack is not valid for Luo Guang. Before the enemy pulled the trigger of the weapon in his hand, the figure of the Holmes clone disappeared from the enemy's sight in an instant. The enemy is S-level. Wang Fengjiao was watching the TV screen in the secret room, which showed the battle situation outside. She had no chance to confirm how fast the enemy was before. After reviewing it, she just thought that the other party used Xiaoying to cover up his actions, so that he sneak attacked her when she was dodging and knocked her out. Xiaoying's strength has not reached this level yet, so naturally she can't confirm how strong the enemy is, so she believes Wang Fengjiao's judgment. On the current screen, the two could not see the enemy at all. They only saw the people in their organization being knocked down continuously, just like seeing a ghost. Xiaoying was frightened by Wang Fengjiao's words and asked hurriedly, "What should we do next?" S-level enemies are not something that these little shrimps can deal with. She doesn't even have the slightest desire to fight. Wang Fengjiao had seen the battles of S-level adapters in the organization before, and kept thinking about how to solve the current problem. The other party just stopped in front of the giant painting, and should have discovered the existence of the two of them. They were not the only ones who were distressed. The station master looked at his subordinates who were quickly eliminated, and he had no idea of killing them. He could only hide under the desk and report the matter to his superiors by phone. An obscure word came into his ears through the phone. Yes, the nervous expression on the station master's face relaxed, and his eyes became dull. Then he opened the dark box under the table without hesitation, entered the password and fingerprint, and finally pressed the confirmation button. A huge rumble accompanied by a sea of fire, the explosion burned a dragon, and the entire 16th floor was razed to the ground. As for the floors above the 16th floor, they were all destroyed. The upper floor passed through the 16th floor and hit the 15th floor, then tilted and fell. The disaster came. A base of the Apocalypse organization. The self-destruct system of the U-63 transfer station was successfully activated, and people have been sent to confirm the situation on the scene. Someone hidden in the dark replied, "I know." After hanging up the phone, she made another call. "I am the director of the Lighthouse Country branch. Wang Fengjiao's mission failed, and Shirley did not come to our arms. The other party did not speak, waiting for the other party to report everything. They encountered a suspected S-class adapter, but the capture mission failed. In order to prevent the organization's secrets from being leaked, I directly issued a self-destruction order. The other party finally responded and said, S-class. You destroyed a precious S-class adapter. It's just suspected S-class. Time is tight, we can't confirm it, and there are no enemies in the population database. The tone of the person reporting did not change. She certainly knew how important S-class adapters, especially pure natural S-class adapters, were. Even if the organization has a way to artificially create S-class, it is very strict with the body, so S-class adapters in the organization are still a scarce species for so many years. Shut up. I don't care about these, you send someone to bring back the flesh and blood of that S-class adapter. The person listening to the report was very confident in the self-destruction system of her organization. The explosion, high-temperature flames, high-altitude fall, and heavy pressure from the building, even the S-class adapters in the organization could not survive, so she could only let her men pick up the fragments of the suspected S-class adapters. After hanging up the phone with the Lighthouse Country branch of the Apocalypse organization, she said to the other two people in the room, Shirley's persuasion mission failed. Should we continue? Although Shirley's adaptability level is not high, as the only G-virus adapter, she has a huge effect on them. The person sitting behind a yellow curtain with the word Liber written on it said, stop for now, unless we send out more advanced operators, but if there are more losses, it will be troublesome. This incident has put her organization at risk of exposure, so she wants to calm down first and wait for the storm to pass. The other person sitting behind the sky blue curtain with the word soon written on it said, without Shirley, we can still advance the adjustment plan. Number 7, let's not make any more trouble for the time being. 2-1. The person called number 7, sitting behind the red curtain with 7 written on it, silently replied, I know. Meow, hold on until the 3rd day of junior high school. I'll take a day off tomorrow and think about the next plot. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 494. Wang Fengjiao and Xiaoying were killed before they could react. Luo Guang's home's clone was gone too. However, this clone was not destroyed by the enemy's self-destruct system. If he wanted, he could have kept the clone alive. But he was worried that the enemy had other tricks and would discover his clone's abilities or get his clone's flesh and blood, so he chose to destroy the clone himself and then use the enemy's self-destruct system to destroy the body and remove all traces. What a bunch of lunatics. Luo Guang really didn't expect the enemy to be so decisive and so brutal that they destroyed an entire commercial building. This behavior was even worse than what Umbrella did in Paris, France. It directly buried the entire commercial building and affected the people around. This behavior without any scruples about the impact was obviously because the Apocalypse organization was confident that they would not find out about him. While Luo Guang was thinking about the latest intelligence he had obtained, he was also recalling his previous relationship with the Apocalypse organization. The first person he met was Wang Wei, the guy who suddenly appeared in front of him and suddenly disappeared. He still hasn't figured out why the Apocalypse organization suddenly gave up on him. Was it because he was determined and not tempted by the other party? At that time, he was still naive and thought that he was a member of the Apocalypse organization and had some special background and identity, but he didn't expect that it was all a script prepared by Wang Wei. Later in Berlin, Luo Guang met the Apocalypse again and snatched food from the tiger's mouth, destroying their mission in the underground Fortress Research Institute. Unfortunately, he still failed to stop the other party from getting the Eternal virus sample. It was also the first time that Luo Guang got a glimpse of some information about the Apocalypse organization in this incident. For example, those strange and unanalyzable strengthening potions, and the so-called Destiny Plan. Luo Guang did not comment on the implementation of the Destiny Plan within the Apocalypse organization, which determines future work based on genes. He only cared about how powerful the genetic engineering technology in this plan was. Later, he met those elusive members of the Apocalypse organization again, and it was already the time of the Harlan incident. Wang Qianglin was very unlucky. At this time, Luo Guang just happened to research the Shinra virus. After controlling the other party, Luo Guang asked a lot of questions and got more information. Unfortunately, Wang Qianglin's internal level is not high, and her own gene level is limited, so there is not much useful information. But the information obtained from that person finally gave Luo Guang a general impression of the Apocalypse organization. The first thing is that this organization will send all kinds of people to seduce people with excellent genes, such as himself and clan he met. If the Beekeeper organization is really under the Apocalypse organization, then Wang Fengjiu and others should have the same reason to kidnap Shirley, in order to optimize the human gene structure. The second thing is the adjustment plan. Although Wang Qianglin said that the adjustment plan had failed, Luo Guang did not believe it. It's not that Wang Qianglin lied, but that the other party's cognition and memory may be wrong. So under Luo Guang's order, Hong Huang once helped him investigate those talents who have achieved excellent results in various fields on the internet, and even hacked into their mobile phones or computers. In the end, nothing was found. Under long-term monitoring, these people have not had any contact with the Apocalypse organization. Luo Guang investigated these people, naturally wanting to find people from the Apocalypse organization and find a breakthrough. The result failed, but he still did not rule out the possibility that the enemy's adjustment plan had been successful, and began to make some response plans. On the other hand, Wang Qianglin also mentioned that there were people from the Apocalypse organization in those biopharmaceutical companies, so their organization could screen out the targets they needed. Luo Guang and Kellen were targeted by the Apocalypse organization because of this. The Red Queen is not omnipotent. When the enemy is physically isolated, she cannot obtain the core information of those companies even if she has thousands of means. Therefore, Luo Guang asked the Donald family to send spies to investigate. So far, it is still in the development stage, and he still needs to wait patiently for the undercover to be promoted and get a raise. Since the Donald family has been mentioned, let's explain their development after being controlled by Luo Guang. First of all, the head of the Donald family is still in office and alive, and there has been no change. Then, the secret research work on the T. Veronica virus has been stopped, and the relevant information was deleted after it was passed to the Red Queen. However, the various research institutes have not been closed, and instead they have specialized in the research of targeted drugs and products for various biochemical viruses, fungi, or parasites, making a lot of money for the X organization. Compared with the GIMZ troops, the Donald family is rich and powerful, and the strength of its hired researchers is naturally superior to them. Previously, the GIMZ troops were able to seize the initiative only because Luo Guang obtained the research data of the Harlan virus, while the demon worm and the Plaka parasite were all due to Lewis, who was very good at parasite research. But in fact, in more biochemical crisis events that have not been mentioned, the Donald family's research institute played a huge role. In addition to making money and gaining fame, Luo Guang also has a plan to let the Donald family win the next election of the leader of the X organization. Then Luo Guang can take advantage of the opportunity of the leader's inauguration banquet, where each family will send people to participate, and use the Shinra virus to control everyone. As long as he can infect and control all the nobles at once, he can completely control the entire X organization and use this power to solve most of the biochemical crises in the world. This is much better than Luo Guang running around alone to solve various biochemical crises. Back to the matter of the apocalypse. Although the enemy destroyed the entire transit base, leaving Luo Guang empty-handed, he did not gain nothing. After he learned of Wang Fengjiu's plan, before his clone arrived, he took turns controlling the two and tried to talk about some things about the Apocalypse organization. If Luo Guang controlled two people to talk at the same time, he would not be able to obtain any useful information, because this essentially became him asking and answering questions by himself. That's why he needed to take turns controlling and then give the other person hints to answer, so that he could get various information. We'll talk about these things later. When Luo Guang was sorting out new information in his mind, someone knocked on the door. There was a knock, and Ashley walked in after getting permission. "Minister, this is the report of our investigation team. They found the Sun Stairs flower and the Secret Research Institute of Umbrella Corporation." Luo Guang nodded, and his clone followed him. His purpose was also very simple. Wesker and Excella were already dead, so there was no need for him to keep these things as bait. He could get some credit while destroying them, which was also considered to be making the best use of them. In this case of Shirley's kidnapping, the Beekeeper organization and the Apocalypse organization behind it could be said to have gained nothing and were the only ones who suffered losses. Claire drove Shirley back home smoothly. Jack went out to greet her, hugged Shirley, and said, "I'm so glad you're safe." As a veteran in the love field, Leon stepped forward to pull Jack away and said righteously, "Don't scare Shirley." Claire said, "Leon, take out the letter from Shirley's mother now." She would not wait for Roman to come and read it together. The letter was with Leon because she was worried that it would be bad if she took it out and lost it. Leon took out the letter from his jacket, handed it to Shirley, and said, "Go upstairs and read it quickly. I'll go hold him back." Shirley took the letter, and before she opened it, the doorbell rang. I know Shirley hurried upstairs. Leon asked Claire to follow Shirley, and then went to open the door. The person who came was indeed Roman. As soon as the door opened, Roman wanted to come in, but was stopped by Leon. He had to ask, "Where's Shirley?" After Holmes found Shirley, Leon did not tell Roman that he had rescued Shirley. So the other party should have known about it when he saw Shirley sitting on the back of the motorcycle when Claire came back, and naturally he would not ask for the details of the rescue. Leon said, "She's back, taking a shower and changing clothes." "Is she okay?" Roman's words also carried a hint of concern. Leon replied, "Claire is being examined, but when she came back, she said the kidnappers didn't hurt her. I'll take her back after she takes a shower." The place to go back is naturally the Research Institute. After something like this happened, Shirley must go back for a detailed physical examination. And Shirley won't be as free as before if she wants to go out to play in the future. That has to wait until the end of this vacation, Leon argued, saying, "The enemy didn't succeed this time, and they definitely won't dare to do it in a short time. We have to give her a detailed physical examination. Now I have to take a detailed record of her." Roman was not convinced and continued, "What? Do you want the G virus to get out of control?" Shirley is not a virus. Leon didn't like the other party's statement that Shirley was the root of all evil. Roman snorted coldly and said, "Don't you know whether she is or not? Face the reality as soon as possible." In his opinion, it was the best choice that Shirley was not taken for dissection. But Leon definitely wouldn't think so, and said, "If it's what you said, those of us who have contact with Shirley would have been infected with the virus long ago. This is all nonsense," and he deliberately argued with the other party about this meaningless topic to delay time. Roman snorted coldly. He saw through the other party's thoughts, and said, "Okay, don't delay time, hand over Shirley." "You wait." Leon did not give in at all, just didn't let the other party in. Roman did not continue to argue with the other party, but just said lightly, "It doesn't matter, I have plenty of time." After that, he left. Back to his command center, The agent in charge of monitoring Claire's family stepped forward and asked, "Boss, do you want to contact the higher UPS to put pressure on that guy?" No, since the higher UPS gave Shirley a week's vacation, it's not too late to wait until the vacation is over, and it doesn't matter if it's a day or two, so don't bother the superiors. But I will contact the higher UPS later. Roman did not intend to hide the fact that Shirley had been rescued. If the organization requires it, it won't be too late for him to contact the FBI superiors to put pressure on Leon. Everything should be based on the instructions of the superiors. What about the letter? The agent asked again. Roman looked at the guy in front of him who was asking questions and didn't say anything. Being stared at by the other party, the talkative agent also knew his mistake and hurriedly said, "I'll go do my work." Roman nodded, changed to a place where no one was, and called Kara and Simmons to report the situation. Shirley sat alone in the room Claire gave her, holding the slightly yellowed envelope in her hand. She carefully opened the envelope and took out a piece of white paper. White paper with no fonts on it. This. Shirley felt very strange. What on earth is going on? She thought for a moment, called Claire up, and told the story. Claire was very surprised. Only she and Leon had kept this envelope. It couldn't be a blank piece of paper. She asked, "The envelope should be glued, right?" As she said that, she picked up the envelope, touched the glue opening, and said, "Is this glue also dry?" "I don't know." Shirley was disappointed and had a bad idea in her heart. This is false. Andrea is with the kidnappers. Claire thought of the contents of those detective dramas and said, "Maybe your mother used other methods to hide the words." Shirley's eyes lit up, she cheered up and said, "Yes. It's possible." The two of them messed around for a while, but found nothing. This hit Shirley even harder. Claire didn't know how to comfort Shirley, and at the same time she was thinking about what the situation was. After Leon finished dealing with Roman and explained some things to his men, he also went upstairs to find Shirley. When he learned about this situation, he was helpless. Roman said that Andrea has nothing to do with the beekeeper organization. This can't be a lie. Leon knew that the FBI would definitely use polygraph and other equipment to confirm Andrea's words. He thought about it and finally thought of a possibility. Is it possible that she took it by mistake? As a former umbrella company employee, she may have participated in anti-tracking training, so she discovered those agents. Claire said, "Are you saying she took the wrong one on purpose?" Shirley listened to the two people's words and remained silent. The expectation just now was finally replaced by disappointment, so she didn't have high hopes for it. "The idea is right." Because Leon answered, "That's right, but the problem lies in Andrea's current situation. I'm worried that the FBI will not let her go, and they will ransack her house." Claire looked at Shirley, who was looking down, and said, "Is there anything I can do?" Leon said, "I plan to investigate Andrea's identity first, confirm where she lives, and then send someone to investigate." "Wait. Brother Leon, forget it," Shirley suddenly spoke. The two of them turned to look at Shirley at the same time, and Claire said, "Shirley, don't worry, we will find a way." Leon also said, "Yes, Andrea is a former umbrella company. Our DSO happened to ask the FBI to extradite her to us in the name of anti-biohazard. Then we can find the real letter." "No need." Shirley took a deep breath and said, "A biohazard incident occurred in Concord City, right? Brother Leon, you should focus on solving this incident." Leon felt a little relieved that Shirley had really grown up. He showed a reassuring smile and said, "It's okay. BSAA and FBC arrived here not long after you entered the city. We can free up a few people to help." Yeah, since Leon said that, Shirley didn't refuse anymore. Meow, thanks for subscribing and voting meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Meow. Chapter 495. Claire and Leon asked Shirley to have a good rest first, and after leaving Andrea's matter to them to figure out, they went to the kitchen on the first floor. Searched can on Google. There was no one else here. When Jack saw them coming down, he took her mother with him to find Shirley. Otherwise he would be too embarrassed to enter a girl's room alone. Leon said to Claire, "Actually, there are other possibilities, but the results are not very good." Claire said, "Are you not optimistic about the answer you told Shirley?" "Not optimistic," Leon expressed his thoughts. "Simmons is more powerful than we thought. Even the president will give him 3 points, so our DSO may not be able to extradite Andrea." He added, "And there is another possibility that I didn't mention just now. That is that Andrea is a liar and deceived all of us. There is no so-called suicide note at all." Claire frowned, understanding the reason for not telling Shirley about this possibility, and asked, "Is there any evidence?" No, Leon was very frank and admitted this directly. "Then these are all guesses. What I said before was all speculation without any evidence. I'm just telling you the worst result first." Of course Leon knew that he was just making guesses, but it was necessary to prepare for the worst in advance based on guesses. Claire looked at Leon, who was much more mature than before, and said, "When did you become a believer in Murphy's Law?" "Okay, what do you want me to do by saying this?" After Leon has experienced so many things, he is no longer the stupid young man he was before, especially since his relationship with Ada has made new progress. He said, "I just want you to comfort Shirley's emotions." "It goes without saying that I would do it," Claire said. "Shirley may have less time to come out in the future. With so many things combined, I'm worried that Shirley will be in a bad mood when she returns to the institute." Claire thought about Leon's words and said, "Do you think Shirley will lose her temper?" "That's what you said." Leon acknowledged the other party's statement in disguise. The happier Shirley was living outside, the more she became bored with life in the institute. Claire said, "This is not a long-term solution. Sooner or later, Shirley will start to resist. Is there really no way for us to get her out of her current life?" Leon shook his head and said, "Shirley must not show off her temper in front of those people, and she must also learn to hide her abilities. Those people are not good people, and they will not pamper Shirley. They will only make Shirley suffer." Claire felt a little depressed when she heard Leon's answer. What the other party couldn't do, it was even less possible for her to do it. As for the concerns mentioned by the other party, Claire also understood and said, "I will talk to her about it." Although Leon and Claire were the ones who rescued Shirley from Raccoon City, if we really want to compare, Claire and Shirley are definitely closer. Leon nodded solemnly and said, "Please." Suddenly, Claire thought of someone and said, "Where is Luo Guang?" The first time Shirley was able to leave the research institute, it was all thanks to Luo Guang's help. Leon suddenly heard the other party say Luo Guang's name and was slightly stunned. After being silent for a while, he said, "I don't know, and we also discussed this issue with him at the time, right? Luo Guang has already told us the answer. Luo Guang has many identities, one of which is an agent of the Lighthouse Country, but this identity is nothing special. Compared to Simmons' identity, a small agent is nothing more than an ant." Claire said without giving up, "He didn't answer our questions directly at that time, but he mentioned custody and custody, right?" Leon recalled it and said, "Yes, and he was right. We really don't have time to take care of Shirley. We can't let her run around with you, right?" He definitely didn't have time to take care of Shirley himself, and although Claire worked at Toursef, her commute to and from get-off work was unstable and she often had to travel for business. Shirley is still underage and needs to go to and from school on her own after leaving the institute's private tutor. To put it bluntly, Shirley has the G virus in her body. Do he and Claire really trust Shirley to live alone? The two looked at each other and fell into silence. Claire said, there should be some friends I know in Terra Sever who can help take care of Shirley. Before the other party could finish speaking, Leon interrupted, I don't recommend exposing Shirley to Terra Sever's sight. The organization is a mixed bag, and it's very likely that someone will discover Shirley's problem. You work in the Z government department, so you should be able to provide a false identity for Shirley, right? I can do this, but I can't do this. Claire's business is private and public. Leon is now in a period of career development and doesn't dare to take risks. As he recalled, he remembered more of the conversation and continued, it's useless for us to discuss this now. Luo Guang also said that even if Shirley can live in the sun and doesn't have to be in a research institute every day, the final custody rights it's just going to happen to Simmons, isn't it? How could Claire forget this and said, I just can't do anything about this matter, so I didn't discuss it? I can only discuss the latter one first. Leon naturally also thought of ways to rescue Shirley, but now that Simmons has obtained custody of Shirley, he will definitely not hand it over easily. When President Graham first stepped down, he once mentioned Shirley's matter, but the other party said that there was nothing he could do and told Leon one thing. That is, Simmons' power is no less than that of the president. So at that time, Leon had no choice but to let it go and follow the other party's suggestions. The last thing he could think of was to wait for Shirley to reach adulthood, and then use this to get rid of Simmons' custody of Shirley, so that he could proceed with his next plan. Hearing the other party's idea of waiting for Shirley to grow up first, Claire could only sigh deeply. It was not easy to endure. Since Shirley had a few days off every month, she wanted to rescue Shirley more and more. She wanted Shirley to take a good look at this colorful world, instead of just having fun when she saw Roman's people appearing around and urging Shirley to go back to the institute. Shirley's disappointed look hurt her heart every time. Leon looked at Claire with his head lowered and felt uncomfortable, but he didn't say anything else. Claire went upstairs to find Shirley, but Leon remained in the kitchen. He also wanted to rescue Shirley, and his feelings were no weaker than Claire's. You must know that he was the one who reached the selling himself agreement with Simmons for Shirley. Although Leon and Claire failed to discuss a feasible plan, he felt that maybe he could find a new method by communicating with Luo Guang, so he called his friend. Leon didn't ask about Shirley as soon as he came up. He first thanked Luo Guang for the important role he sent to help. Luo Guang, please help me convey my gratitude to Holmes. Luo Guang is the only one in the minister's office now, and his secretary Ashley has gone out to do errands. Luo Guang told the bad news directly, he is dead. What? Leon stared, disbelieving the news, and said, please, this joke is not funny at all. Luo Guang's tone was a little sad as he said, I'm not kidding. He unfortunately died in the latest Boston bombing. He also asked the Red Emperor to pay attention to the news after the death of Holmes' clone, and by the way, he tried to use the news media's lens to try his luck. If the Apocalypse organization sends someone to confirm the situation, the Red Emperor will have the opportunity to discover possible enemies through micro-expressions. Leon replied with a puzzled look on his face, I don't know about this case. After all, their DSO's duty is only to counter biohazards, and the bombing case is the responsibility of the local police station. If a terrorist organization is involved, it is also the responsibility of the FBI or CIA, so even if his subordinates receive news of the bombing case, they will not take the initiative to report it to him. Leon added, but didn't he deal with other clients' matters? How could he get into such big trouble? You said the kidnapping was related to the beekeepers, right? That's right. Did he go to investigate the beekeeper organization? Luo Guang confirmed the other party's speculation and said, yes, the two kidnappers stole his car, but there was a tracker on it. In fact, Wang Fengjiao and Wang Fengjiao also considered this, so they parked the car a few kilometers away and walked to the transfer base. For this kind of thing, he should have called us to help. Luo Guang did not go into too much detail and replied, This is his own choice. If Leon knew the circumstances of the bombing, you might think that it was the right choice for him not to call you. Until now, the local police have not the specific casualties have been calculated. When the entire commercial building collapses, no matter how many people from DSO go, it will be in vain. Leon did not question Luo Guang's words and said, then does he have any relatives? No. Luo Guang knew the reason why Leon asked this question and said, I will handle the matter after his death. You should focus on the biological crisis in Concord City now. In fact, the clone is gone. Once it is gone, that is, the fake identity used for flying needs to be dealt with. Luo Guang changed the topic from the clone to Leon and continued, although BSAA and FBC have already taken over, this should be your DSO's first mission. You can't leave the matter directly to them, right? Leon replied, the main responsibility of our DSO is not to eliminate all biological monsters, but to find out the mastermind behind the biological crisis. The reason why DSO is short of manpower is not because it has just been established, but because their mission dictates that they value quality over quantity. Luo Guang nodded and said, okay. Come on. If there is nothing else, I will hang up. He thought Leon was calling him just to express his gratitude to Holmes. Wait, Leon quickly stopped Luo Guang from hanging up the phone. Luo Guang asked strangely, is there anything else? Leon recalled the conversation at the Christmas party that year, and he found that neither he nor Claire asked Luo Guang how he brought Shirley out. Because they all saw Shirley's hope of leaving the institute at that time, they asked Luo Guang if he could rescue Shirley. But Luo Guang did not answer directly. Instead, he threw a question to them. Neither Leon nor Claire could solve the custody issue, so they forgot to ask the question after thinking about it so hard. So Leon asked, how did you take Shirley out of the institute back then? Do you know Simmons? When Leon carried out the mission to rescue Ashley, he only knew that Luo Guang was hired from outside. Of course, he could also be a member of other Secret Service departments, because Ashley was successfully captured at that time because of the mole problem. But no matter how he thought about it, he did not suspect that the other party was Simmons's subordinate. Luo Guang is now full-fledged. Although his power is not yet able to compete with Organization X, he has enough personal strength to cause Organization X to bleed. Even if they fall out, he can make Organization X reconcile with him unwillingly. So he did not continue to hide the matter and said, yes, I am Simmons' subordinate. As for Shirley's temporary leave of the institute, it was only because I suggested that it could help the research of G-virus. It was talking about the G-virus, but Leon knew it was referring to the research on Shirley. When did it happen? I was already one when I was in the Red Claws. But I wasn't considered a close confidant of Simmons at that time. Luo Guang sighed. Although the other party never asked, objectively speaking, he was indeed deceiving his friend. So he said directly, I'm sorry for keeping the secret from you for so long. Leon was still adjusting his mentality and did not reply. If you say you're not angry, it's all lies. How could you not be resentful and angry after being hidden for so long? But along the way he recalled Luo Guang's past deceptions, and at the same time he also recalled Luo Guang's help to him in the past. In the end, except for sighing, he did not blame Luo Guang. Although the other party works for Simmons, he treats himself very well and has made many contributions to world peace. He is not a bad person. I believe you have your own reasons, Leon said. I was forced to join like you back then. If I didn't climb up, I would end up as cannon fodder. Luo Guang confessed his relationship with Simmons, but would not tell anything about Organization X. Leon nodded. Didn't he himself go all the way to get rid of Simmons' control? You have to buy me a drink later. Copy that. Luo Guang smiled. He did not lose a friend because of this. Leon took the initiative to change the topic and said, back to the topic, I have one more thing to ask you about, which is about Shirley. Without the other party saying anything, Luo Guang knew what the other party wanted to ask. After quickly thinking about a preliminary plan, he replied, I have a way to get Shirley to leave the institute, but now I have lost the best time. Previously, he was worried that clearing the G-virus from Shirley's body would drastically change the opponent's fate, causing Shirley to lose her trump card for surviving the Resident Evil incident. But with his current ability, he can already try to modify the G-virus in Shirley's body and disguise it as normal human cells. Luo Guang is now very familiar with the body monitoring equipment of organization. When Leon heard this, he quickly asked, how to say it specifically. Luo Guang asked, has Shirley returned to the research institute? Leon was unsure and couldn't give an accurate reply, it's just a matter of today and tomorrow. It depends on whether the institute will allow Shirley a day off. I have a way to remove the G-virus from Shirley's body, but removing it hastily will cause trouble, so I could have used the kidnapper to pass the blame to the beekeeper organization. Luo Guang's mobile phone communication was protected by the Red Emperor, and he was not afraid of being monitored, so he directly told the method. So it's already too late. Even if I send someone from Africa to the lighthouse country now, Shirley has already returned to the institute. He didn't think Leon could stop Organization X from taking Shirley away. Leon thought for a moment and understood Luo Guang's plan, and immediately said, but if the other party feels that Shirley is worthless and knows too many secrets, I'm worried that they will kill and silence her. Luo Guang said while thinking about perfecting this plan, no matter what, I have a method, but it requires an opportunity. I understand. Are there any requirements to eliminate the virus from Shirley's body? Luo Guang knew that Leon wanted to use his own resources to solve Shirley's problem, so he said, you can't do it, so you can only let professionals come. The G-virus vaccine currently on the market is ineffective against Shirley. Because the G-virus in Shirley's body had been baptized by the antidote and mutated. Although it was still impossible to rescue Shirley, Leon finally saw a glimmer of hope and said, I tried my best to hold them back. Can you ask the professional to come over quickly? Although you said it was late, I still want to try my best. Can. Since the other party wants to take a gamble, Luo Guang will not refuse just because he finds it troublesome. Meow, thanks for subscribing and voting meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Meow. Chapter 496. Kara, who was researching the T-02 virus, connected the phone, pressed the speakerphone and placed it next to the table, listening to Roman's report about Shirley. In the end, Leon refused to let us take Shirley back immediately for protection. Roman didn't add any jealousy and told the truth. Kara asked, how did Shirley get it back? Was she injured? The specific situation is unknown. Our people were severely injured before, and the rest are holding on at the checkpoint. The DSO team is also busy dealing with the sudden biohazard incident in Concord. In the end, Claire brought it back single-handedly. Roman didn't ask Claire in detail how he found Shirley, but just reported that Shirley had been found. After all, this is their main mission, so for the sake of rigor, he used the word bring instead of saying that Claire retrieved Shirley. After hearing what the other party added, Kara was a little unhappy and said, why don't you investigate clearly first and then report to me? Do you think I have a lot of time? Simmons became increasingly obsessed with Ada, and pictures of the woman began to appear in his bedroom. Some of these photos were secretly taken by him, and some were taken by Luo Guang for him. Kara's heart became more and more urgent, worrying that if she continued like this, she would be unable to restore Simmons, who was gradually slipping into madness. If Shirley successfully retrieves it, it will be enough to develop a new virus that can help her. She didn't care much about the rest of the things, and naturally she didn't want Roman to disturb her again later for the same thing. I don't dare. There are just two urgent matters that require Professor Kara to make a decision. But Simmons handed the matter directly to Kara, so Roman could only report it to Kara. Say it. Kara didn't waste any more words and quickly finished the matter. Roman said, "The first thing is that Shirley's mother left a letter for her, but because of the obstruction from DSO, we were unable to review the content of the letter." Seeing that Kara didn't speak, he said another thing. "The other thing is whether we need to end Shirley's vacation early. What should we do if DSO blocks it?" Kara thought about it, and finally said slowly, "Shirley has read the letter. It's probably too late for you to report now. Shirley had already found it, and the other party would definitely check the letter immediately, so there was no point in reporting to her about checking the letter." She didn't understand why the other party asked such a time-wasting question. Of course Roman knew it was too late now. He actually deliberately didn't bother with the letter at that time. There was no special reason for doing this, it was just a little compassion for Shirley. But this did not affect his decision to report the incident to Kara. Because whether it is delayed or not is one thing, but whether it is reported to superiors is another. Bullying one's superiors and concealing one's subordinates is a dead end in Organization X. Yes, we are just the FBI, and it would not be wise to choose to conflict with the Secret Service and the Department of Homeland Security. Now that Shirley had read it, Kara couldn't clear Shirley's memory, so she interrupted directly, "Okay, I don't want to hear your excuses. You can just confirm the content of the letter later." Kara, who had always only focused on research, was responsible for managing her own research institute in the past, but the people inside it were all researchers who spoke straightforwardly. Things were basically related to research, and there were not so many trivial things that required her attention. This was the first time she felt how hard it was to be a leader. Their organization pays attention to those who are capable, so there are basically no people in the management who are just doing nothing, so naturally they don't have Luo Guang's idea of fishing. Received. Roman asked, "Then how should we deal with the second thing?" "I told her to give her a week off, and then pick her up after the vacation is over." Kara now regards Shirley as her friend. After the other party is frightened, it is better to let Claire and the others comfort her before taking her back to the institute. "But for safety reasons," she added, "you should strengthen your defense during this period to prevent this from happening again." Although he should not question the judgment of his superiors, Roman still said, "Sir, although Shirley does not need to go back, does she need to undergo a physical examination?" "Okay, I will send someone over there, and you can connect with me then." Roman agreed. After the troops of BSAA and FBC came over, his men in charge of the checkpoint have returned to garrison. With the new reinforcements, if the enemy still dares to take action, he will definitely make it impossible for them to come back. Kara hung up the phone and quickly refocused her attention on her research. But after a while, someone interrupted her work. It wasn't Roman, but someone she had assigned to conduct another study. After Roman returned to the temporary command center from the old office building, he also reported Leon's speculation about the beekeeper organization. This does not mean that he believes Lyon's guess, but he is rigorous and does not want to miss any possibilities. He wasn't afraid that the other party's guess was wrong, but he was afraid that Leon would guess it right but he didn't report it, and then the blame would be his own. Kara, who knew Leon's guess, did not rashly deny the statement. Instead, she sent someone to conduct experiments and use evidence to verify the authenticity of the guess. According to her knowledge, there are two ways of brainwashing. One is brainwashing related to hypnosis and psychology. This method is not stable and can be easily deactivated, but it is better than being concealed enough. The other is brainwashing on the physical level, changing people's memories through surgery and other methods. This practice easily leaves traces of the surgery, making it easier to spot. But the problem is that this method is still in the theoretical stage, and it cannot be achieved even with the strength of Organization X. Director Kara, we have completed the tests and found no traces of surgery anywhere on the brain or body, let alone hypnosis or other problems. No useful findings at all, Kara asked casually. The person in charge said, no, but we found that these people have one thing in common. He did not sell out, and then said, first, their memories are missing parts, and they only have memories of more than a year in their minds. More than a year of memories. Kara thought about what this commonality meant. The person in charge had other information and said, we checked the information of other prisoners of the Beekeeper organization, but the transcript did not mention this, so I hope the director can help confirm it. The research institute is highly confidential, so the superiors can only ask the superiors to contact the captives and ask them to confirm. I know. I will go down and confirm. Kara hung up the phone. If this is true, it is highly likely that the Beekeeper organization controls memory-related technologies. And having the ability to modify memory is actually no different from brainwashing. So, did the agent named Leon really guess the truth correctly? After Kara finished her instructions, she stopped her research and started thinking. Although there is no conclusive evidence of brainwashing, the commonalities among these prisoners verify Lyon's agents from the side. If this kind of technology could be obtained, would it allow Simmons to? On the other side, after Leon hung up the phone with Luo Guang, he did not immediately tell Claire and Shirley about Luo Guang's plan. As Luo Guang said, it was too late to send someone over now. We could only see if he could hold Roman back. Leon was just taking a gamble now, and his hope was not great, so he did not tell Shirley and the others, lest the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. After leaving the kitchen, he first checked with his men for the latest news on the biohazard in Concord, and then searched for information on the Boston bombing. After seeing the situation at the scene, he finally understood what Luo Guang meant. Holmes did not ask him for help, which was indeed a lucky decision for Leon and other DSO agents. But it also made him appreciate the other party even more. Before Leon could do anything else, Roman came to Claire's house again. Although the other party definitely doesn't welcome him and doesn't look at him well, he doesn't care. This is his job. Roman said straight to the point, as mentioned above, Shirley can stay here for a week before returning to the institute, but we will definitely set up defenses around the area. Please don't take Shirley around. Copy that, Leon said sarcastically and immediately closed the door. Roman quickly blocked the position with quick eyes and hands, preventing the other party from closing the door. Leon couldn't trap the other party with the door, so he could only let him in with a look of helplessness. He said, Roman, what do you mean? Are you afraid that the head of the household will shoot you if you break into a house without permission? FBI, open the door. Roman didn't say any more nonsense and just took out his ID and went through the process. Leon didn't reply and looked at the other party's performance. Tell me, can you give us that letter? No letter. What do you mean? Luo Mangsu squinted his eyes and stared at the young man in front of him. Leon replied, literally, there is only a piece of white paper inside the envelope. We have tried various methods but the fonts have not been displayed. Naturally, Roman would not believe this and said, do you think I would believe this kind of lie? Leon acted above board and said, I know you won't believe it, but it's the truth. He then asked, is Andrea really entrusted by Shirley's mother? You should have searched her room, right? Roman had doubts on his face, but he still answered the other party's question and said, the result of the interrogation is this. The other party did not resist and told everything before entering the interrogation room. As for her home search, we naturally did it and found no letters from Shirley's mother. Leon didn't care at all about the suspicious eyes of the other party and said, does she have anything from Umbrella Company at home? Or is she really from Umbrella Company? Why do you guys from the Secret Service always question our FBI's case handling methods? We are much more professional than you. This is what Roman is most dissatisfied with Leon. Leon just said silently, maybe it's the influence of the TV series. Roman was stunned, not expecting to get such an answer. Indeed, in order to highlight the protagonist, many TV dramas will arrange plots such as the police being late and the FBI being tricked. In the end, he skipped the topic and said, "We have searched her home, and there is nothing from Umbrella Company. There is no problem with her identity. She once worked at the Umbrella headquarters in Raccoon City. After escaping from Umbrella Company, naturally, Umbrella Company's items will not be saved. It was just stalling for time anyway," so Leon slowly began to think. Roman also spent time with the other party, and he was not in a hurry now. Leon said, "What is her position? Why does she interact with people from the institute?" "Logistics manager. She knows Annette because the two of them often exchange research materials, and they have become familiar with her as soon as they go back and forth. It doesn't sound like a problem, and you don't necessarily need to be connected at work to get to know each other and become friends." Roman made a judgment. Anyway, Andrea's words are correct, including her experiences after leaving Raccoon City. Leon didn't question it anymore and said, "But there is only a piece of white paper in the envelope. How about you take this away and check if there is any special paint on it? Bring it to you." Roman would not be polite and said, "It would be fine if there is really invisible paint on it, and it is really just a piece of white paper. There will definitely be a lot of trouble for you in the future. This is a fact, and there's nothing I can do about it," Leon replied angrily. He is not afraid of investigation, but he is afraid of trouble, especially for things that are difficult to prove on his own. If I had known, he would have filmed a video of opening an envelope. Shirley and others came down from the second floor. When she saw Roman, she immediately hid behind Claire and looked at him timidly. "This is the letter you asked for." Claire handed the envelope to Roman. Leon looked at the envelope and sighed, thinking that if he had known this, he would have just checked it with Roman. Roman opened the envelope directly, took out the white paper inside, and asked, "Are you sure this is the letter?" After Claire saw Leon's text message, she was also thinking about how to explain the blank piece of paper, and said, "If we want to lie to you, wouldn't it be better if we just forge a letter with words? Perhaps you just plan to use this kind of reverse thinking to deceive me? It's all a blank piece of paper anyway. Isn't it up to you to tell whether it is true or false?" Shirley took the initiative and said, "This is the letter from Andrea." Thinking that there was nothing in the letter, tears welled up in her red eyes. Roman sneered and said to Shirley, "How do you know that the letter they showed you was the one Andrea wanted to give you? Or they took advantage of your absence and read the letter first, and then found that there was something wrong in it? I want you to know something, so why not replace it with a blank piece of paper?" What he said was sowing discord, and Claire became furious when she heard this. Claire wouldn't do that, but Shirley's words came out first. Roman was full of malice and said, "Why do you say that? Just because she saved you? You know what you say but not what you mean." "Because," Shirley responded in a hurry, "the sealing glue on the envelope was dry. I finally opened it myself, and there was only this piece of white paper inside." Roman looked at the serious Shirley. He said these things just to make Shirley's mood fluctuate violently, and then he couldn't help but tell the situation at that time. Although Shirley was almost an adult, she had no intentions due to her experience, so Roman believed what she said more. So after hearing Shirley's words, he stopped worrying about Xin and said, "Okay, I hope you won't suffer from the two of them in the future. Roman has other things to say when he comes here. I have two other things to say. One is that Shirley can't leave here until the end of the holiday. We will also send someone to do a detailed physical examination on her later." Leon's eyes flashed, and then it was up to him to see if he could delay time. Claire had no objection to Roman's arrangement. She also wanted to confirm Shirley's health and asked, "What about the other thing?" Roman said, "Claire, I want to know how you rescued Shirley alone." Meow, thanks for subscribing and voting me out. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 497. Luo Guang got off work on time. As a result, as soon as he and Ashley returned home hand in hand, he received a call from Leon. The specific content is that his mission to delay time failed. Originally, he could just send a text message for this kind of thing, but with his relationship with Luo Guang, there was no need to make a phone call. But Leon felt that the professionals sent by Luo Guang had already set off. It would be too insincere for him to let the other party go all the way in vain and just send a text message. He was worried that the professional would have a rift because of this and would not treat Shirley. Naturally, he also asked about the identity of this expert. Luo Guang did not explain in detail, only the appearance of the expert. This expert has tan skin and a medium build. Luo Guang made it based on Watson's appearance. The only difference is that he does not have a limp on his feet, and his name is Watson John. Although Leon didn't get an accurate answer, he vaguely felt that the expert might be someone from Umbrella Company. Otherwise, how could he be so familiar with the G virus? Luo Guang didn't say it, maybe because he was worried about his grievances with Umbrella and was worried that he would refuse to remove the virus from Shirley's body because of his previous status. When did you ask people to go to the lighthouse country? Why didn't you tell me? Ashley came from the kitchen to the living room with 2 glasses of lemon and honey water. She had been curious before about why there was something that her personal secretary didn't know. She was just waiting for Luo Guang to confess to her, so she couldn't help but ask about it now. This matter has nothing to do with B.S.A.'s work. You can't use your power for personal gain. Luo Guang didn't want to involve Ashley in Shirley's affairs, or in the affairs of Organization X. Ashley handed the lemon and honey water to Luo Guang and said mischievously, "Hey, then does it count as self-serving for personal gain by bringing me as a secretary home?" Luo Guang smiled and patted her elastic buttocks and said, "This is business." He knew that the other party was concerned about him and wanted to know what happened and see if he could help. So he explained, "It's a matter on Lion's side and has nothing to do with our BSAA, so I didn't bother you to help book flights or anything like that." Leon is from the Secret Service and is now considered a member of the Department of Homeland Security. The tasks of these 2 departments require high confidentiality, so naturally they cannot be disclosed. Ashley put down her glass of lemon and honey water and said, "It has nothing to do with our BSAA, but I am a humble woman. You don't have to hide it from me, right?" She is speaking more and more boldly now, and Luo Guang is not sure whether it is because of Jill's influence. "I didn't hide it on purpose, didn't you know that? That's also because I heard you booking a flight. There are no flight apps nowadays, so you have to call to book. Luo Guang is a black gold card user of that airline, so he can enjoy the service." Ashley added, "I won't tell you if I don't ask you, right? Jill has a bad habit of telling you." She had heard Gil say that she must ask Luo Guang clearly what he meant, otherwise she would not know it if she was deceived. This is not the most irritating thing. The most irritating thing is that after reviewing it, Luo Guang's words were not wrong, he just understood the wrong meaning. "Actually, I didn't avoid you." Luo Guang put his hands around Ashley's waist and made her sit on his lap face to face. Ashley turned her head, but still looked at Luo Guang out of the corner of her eye. But it makes no difference whether I heard it or not. I don't know anything." Luo Guang thought that the other parties pretending to be angry was a bit cute, and smiled, "This matter has nothing to do with you and me. Leon just asked me to help contact someone." When Ashley heard this, she knew that it was not an important matter, but she still asked with the momentum of breaking the casserole, "Who to contact?" "Do I know him?" Luo Guang said frankly, "The person you don't know is a former Umbrella researcher." Male. That's fine. Ashley had Jill's order not to let Luo Guang mess around with women anymore. Can't you just ask if it's a boy or a girl? Luo Guang vaguely knew the reason why the other party asked about this matter. Ashley immediately replied, that won't work. I won't give you a chance to bewitch. Luo Guang chuckled and said, I don't know how to do it. The most I can do is act like a hooligan. Ah. One morning a few days later, Luo Guang finished making breakfast and put it on the dining table. Ashley has already cleared the table and is waiting for dinner. The two of them were chatting while eating, and the latest news was playing on the TV as background music. Welcome to today's world news. I am Ashley. What's the schedule for today? Although Luo Guang is still at home, he still has to confirm today's work schedule in advance so that he can start work immediately when he returns to the office. The morning is the monthly summary meeting. We need to connect to the headquarters for an online meeting. I will make sure the network is smooth when I get back. Ashley didn't take out a notebook, she had all the things to do written down in her head. Has the revised summary report been sent to my email? Luo Guang is also top-notch in making reports, but doesn't it feel like a waste to do it yourself when you have a secretary? As a successful person, you have to learn how to do things secretly. Yes, it has been modified as you said. Luo Guang pretended to be training Ashley's report writing skills, but in fact he just wanted to be lazy. Because he really wrote a good report, Ashley really believed this statement. Luo Guang put down the milk cup and said, that's fine. I'll go back and take a look. This is a reporter from the Boston scene. Behind me is the scene of the explosion after the rescue operation in the past few days. Ashley grew up in the lighthouse country. When she heard the news report, she couldn't help but turn her head to look over. The victims were not only the people in the building, but also the people in the surrounding buildings. So far, more than 300 bodies have been dug out. She listened to what the reporter said on the scene and said, the person who caused the explosion is too bad. Dare to do it but dare not admit it? The reporter on TV mentioned that no organization has come out to admit the incident so far. Admitting that they have done bad things is not because those terrorist organizations are fools, but to express their political demands. Otherwise, there is no point in doing such things. Yes, I hope the murderer can be caught as soon as possible, Luo Guang echoed. He knew that the explosion was caused by the beekeeper organization, but he didn't say it. Not only that, Luo Guang has received a lot of intelligence recently. For example, the FBI took this opportunity to repropose the Skynet plan, intending to cover public areas in major cities with surveillance cameras. For this proposal, the states of the Lighthouse State had different reactions, some agreed, some opposed, and some wanted to hold a referendum. There was another more important thing. Major General Wilson gave a speech at the Pentagon, putting the blame for the Boston bombing on the country of Palestine. President Seymour did not like to start foreign wars, and wanted to focus on developing the domestic economy, so he planned to end the war in Palestine. But Wilson, who was in charge of this war, wanted to use this war as an opportunity to accumulate military merits and finally take the position of Minister of Defense. Rightward arrow. During the company turmoil, he had planned to use the power of the Mad Dog Squad and the biochemical monsters to launch a small biochemical crisis, and then blame Palestine, so that he could continue the war. As a result, he happened to encounter the big plan initiated by Wesker of the Tri-Union Company, which made his plan aborted, and the war against Palestine was still stopped by President Seymour. Fortunately, the Lighthouse Army had not yet completed its withdrawal, and he could use this bombing to restart the war. Wilson's plan was in line with the interests of the domestic arms dealers of the Lighthouse. Therefore, after losing the secret funding of the Tri-Union Company, he could also ask these arms dealers to help launch a domestic public opinion war and force President Seymour to continue the war with the Palestine state. It is worth mentioning that it was FBC soldiers who attacked the North American branch of the Tri-Union Company at that time. Because of some small cooperation between Wilson and Morgan and for their own interests, the information about the cooperation between both parties and the Tri-Union Company was cleared. These things have nothing to do with Luo Guang for the time being, and will be discussed later. He and Ashley got the topic from the news again, chatting, and soon finished breakfast, and it was time to go to work. On the same night, Taranto, Italy. This is a city with a long history of military ports and the largest naval base in Italy, divided into two base areas, the inner port and the outer port. It looks heavily guarded here, with teams of soldiers patrolling back and forth on the periphery. But in fact, the security is tight outside and loose inside. The people in the monitoring room are eating pizza and chatting. Because it is no longer a war period. Just then, a transport convoy with military logos arrived at the entrance of the outer port naval base. It's so late, and you have to travel a long distance. Thank you for your hard work. The guard at the gate checked the other party's documents and talked. They are usually bored as guards here. In order to maintain the image of the Navy, they can't play with mobile phones or read books. The transport captain sitting in the co-pilot seat of the first transport truck expressed helplessness and said, "There is no way. For the brothers, it is better to send it here quickly. In general, they will not be asked to go back immediately, but to rest in place for a day. This is also to prevent people from being found after checking and counting the goods." The transport captain is also worried that he will be blamed for damaging the materials due to improper transportation. The goods are fine, and they match the list. The soldier responsible for checking the truck cargo box came back to report. There was no time to count and confirm them one by one, so he only randomly checked the goods on the outside of the cargo box. "Okay, I wish you a good day." The captain of the guard gave the document back to the captain of the transport team, and then waved to the guard room to open the electric gate. The captain of the transport team asked his men to drive the car into the warehouse. He got off the car directly, looked around, and confirmed whether the location of the surveillance was the same as the message. A logistics duty officer yawned and walked over, asking, "Why are you here so late? Everyone is asleep." After the other party entered the blind spot of the surveillance, the captain of the transport team took the initiative to meet him, and killed the duty officer with a knife. The driver in the car saw that the captain had solved the duty officer, so he turned on the special device under his feet. This device is not built into the truck, but modified by himself. Its function is not special, it just makes a green light on the cargo box. There was a sound of moving things, and soon the nylon cloth on the side of these trucks was cut open, and the fully armed people jumped down. These people did not walk around, but stuck to the trucks to hide their bodies. The driver also got out of the car, and the transport team leader counted the number of people and put on a portable headset. Without any new instructions or orders, he only said one sentence, "Fight for the blue and clean world." The men repeated the same words in unison. After that, each team began to deploy and act according to their own tasks. The people in the monitoring room did not pay attention to the warehouse all the time, so they did not find the problem until the teams left the warehouse, and sounded the alarm. But this was not an ordinary Trojan horse plan. Some of them worked together inside and outside to attack together, otherwise they would not know the situation of the naval base so well. In addition to the undercover who was responsible for the main task, the other insiders started the final task after the attack, which was to set fire everywhere to create chaos. A team of 7 went to the dormitory of the Marine Corps. Soldiers in the barracks were not allowed to carry weapons with them in non-war situations. It was like hitting a stone with an egg to let the Marines fight the attackers unarmed, so they gathered in squads and immediately went to the gun room to take out their guns. But they only prepared magazines for tomorrow's training in advance, so they deliberately left 2 squads to guard and press magazines. The company commander had learned what happened in the base through the internal phone. The other party was wearing army uniforms, which were different from the Navy uniforms of himself and others, so there was no need to distinguish them. He led his men to attack. However, they were ambushed by the attackers not long after they left the dormitory, and 7 or 8 people were killed and injured in an instant. It was the 7-man team that attacked them. The naval base is large and there are many roads. The reason why they can accurately ambush these Marines is very simple. Because the place where they ambushed is the only way for these Marines to go to the base building, and they also smashed the surveillance cameras along the way. However, the Marines have an absolute advantage in numbers. Although there were casualties due to the sneak attack, the company commander was only shot in the arm and was not in danger of life for the time being, so he immediately began to command his men to cover his teammates and outflanking. The naval base on the inner harbor has received the attack report and sent out support troops, so these attackers must race against time. Another team captured the sonar monitoring station responsible for the outer harbor naval base and directly opened fire to destroy all the equipment inside. The team leader asked, "The bomb has been installed. Are you afraid? Since we are determined to carry out this mission, we have never thought about leaving alive. Anyway, I have nothing." The man who spoke had a vicissitudes of life on his face. He was 35 years old. His relatives died in a biochemical crisis. "No, you still have us now." The person who answered was relatively young and shot at the door. The other 4 teammates of the team had died, leaving only 3 of them. The captain heard his teammates' words, nodded and pressed the countdown switch. The 3 shouted in unison, "For the blue and pure world." The soldiers on the periphery saw that there was no gunfire inside, and the attackers shouted again, but they didn't hear what they shouted specifically. The platoon leader in command ordered to advance, but he didn't take a step. Before these soldiers approached, a huge explosion sounded, the glass full of bullet holes shattered directly, and an explosion occurred in the sonar monitoring station. Meow, thank you for subscribing, rewarding, and voting. The data clearly shows that someone has rewarded, but no specific news has been received. Weird. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 498. The attack was over. The entire inner harbor naval base was in a mess, with firefighters putting out fires and naval soldiers cleaning up the mess everywhere. The Chief of the Navy General Staff immediately held a meeting to confirm the circumstances of the accident after the situation calmed down, and then he had to report to the Minister of Defense and the Chief of Defense Staff in person. The sonar monitoring station, Marine Corps dormitory, armory, and base headquarters were all targeted. All the attackers, including the insiders, have been killed. In fact, some of the attackers committed suicide, but the Navy needed to take the heads of these attackers to reduce its responsibility. The officer in charge of reporting continued, "According to statistics so far, we have sacrificed a total of 121 brave soldiers. In addition, there are more than 200 wounded, including those injured in firefighting." The Chief of the Navy General Staff asked, "Have you found the identity of the attacker?" The coroner found a hound tattoo on one of the bodies. "We have confirmed with the Military Intelligence Bureau that this tattoo pattern is the logo of the biological terrorist organization called Greyhound." The officer paused and added, "According to the information provided by the gate guard, the man with the tattoo is the captain of the transport team this time. Is the soldier on duty at the gate okay?" The Chief of the Navy General Staff's first reaction was that the gate guard was also an insider. If these people could find the problem at the time, the loss of the attack would definitely be much smaller. The officer reported truthfully, without any subjective speculation, and only told the situation of the investigation. There is no problem with their inspection procedures, and they also sampled the goods. We retrieved their previous duty videos for comparison, and the inspection procedures have not changed, and the inspection method is consistent with that of other soldiers on duty. Since we want to confirm whether these people are insiders, we naturally have to see if there are any differences between before and after and compared with other people. The results are similar, and no obvious intentional behavior was found. The Chief of the Navy General Staff does not want more insiders in the Navy. So he nodded and asked, "What does the Army say?" This time, the Army was responsible for transporting the materials, so the other party could not escape responsibility and had to bear a lot of responsibility. They said that the transport team leader was a registered active officer, but the drivers were not theirs. They are also conducting an internal review and looking for the missing drivers at the same time. What do you think? The Chief of the Navy General Staff did not ask the officer in charge of reporting, but the deputy staff and others. The deputy staff looked around and saw that no one wanted to be the first to speak out, so he took the initiative to say, "The Greyhound organization is a biochemical terrorist organization. It seems that it has never carried out such a pure terrorist attack." What he meant was that there were no zombies or other biochemical monsters participating in this attack, which did not conform to the previous rules. The deputy staff also had other evidence. Pointing to the information in his hand, he said, "The Military Intelligence Bureau has checked the identities of all the attackers, and none of them match the wanted list. Is it possible that other terrorist organizations are framing them?" He was skeptical about the identity of the attackers this time, worried about mistaking the identity of the enemy. Someone took the lead, and another person also expressed his opinion, "We will make a report after the summary." Although there are doubts, this Greyhound organization's logo tattoo is unique and is our only evidence. The Chief of the Navy General Staff nodded, agreed with the man, and said, "Then let's decide it." Just as he was about to arrange the tasks for everyone under his command, the door of the conference room was suddenly knocked. Everyone looked at the door, and the officer in charge of the report opened the door after asking the identity of the person outside the door. The person who came in was panicked, sweating profusely, and panting slightly. Seeing this, the deputy staff officer asked, "What happened? Why are you so panicked?" The Chief of the Navy had a bad feeling in his heart and did not speak. The man did not bother to salute or anything like that, and directly said, "The Felter is lost." "The Felter is a Sorrow-class submarine." "What?" The Chief of the Navy Staff slammed the table. He never expected that there would be something worse than this attack. How could such a large submarine be lost just like that? This Sorrow-class submarine numbered S-526 has just undergone modernization recently, and it can be said to be the strongest submarine in service in their Italian Navy. The Italian Navy intends to use the submarine as a transition until the new submarine they developed with Germany is put into service. After being surprised, the Chief of the Navy Staff immediately asked, "Where are the people in the monitoring room? What do they do for a living?" The newcomer took out the latest summary information from the bag and distributed it with the officer who reported before. The deputy staff officer looked at the information and said, "The report said that when the base was attacked, the people in the monitoring room saw the submarine crew boarding the submarine and then diving. They just thought that they received orders from their superiors to prevent the attackers from seizing the submarine, so the people in the monitoring room didn't pay much attention to it. Whether they did their job or not, the people in the monitoring room and the soldiers on duty at the door must be punished this time." Someone said, "The investigation report said that more than half of the crew members in charge of the submarine participated in the defection, and they are also insiders. In addition to those in the attack, are we undercovers in the Navy?" He wanted to say that there were too many traitors in the Navy, but he was a member of the Navy himself, so it would not have a good impact if he said it, but the others basically understood what he wanted to say and couldn't help but keep silent. The Chief of Naval Staff picked up the previous report and skipped the topic. "It seems that this submarine is the real target of the Greyhound organization. Those attacks are just part of the plan to attack the East and the West. Otherwise, why would they target the sonar listening station? Attack." The underwater sonar equipment was not damaged, but without the instruments in the listening station, they could not know the underwater monitoring status of the sonar equipment. Now is not the time to hold people accountable. The Chief of Naval Staff made a decisive decision and issued an order directly, Deputy Chief of Staff, arrange for your people to work and send destroyers to search for submarines. I will contact the superior department to prevent the submarine from leaving the Mediterranean. What happens if a destroyer spots a submarine? The Chief of Naval Staff replied, follow and wait for the latest instructions. The price of manufacturing a submarine is not low, and the Navy will not directly destroy the submarine. This Italian Soro-class submarine has a total length of 66.35 meters, a side width of 6.83 meters, a height of 12.38 meters, and a draft of 5.8 meters. The Suez Canal has been expanded many times, and its width at its narrowest point is about 280 meters, and the canal's water depth is 22.5 meters. So this submarine can theoretically leave the Mediterranean through this canal. Egypt, which has control of the Suez Canal, does not restrict the passage of submarines, but they need to apply to them for review, and they also need to be floating throughout the entire process. Therefore, if we take this route, submarines can only stow away by underwater navigation. But the canal is not a sea after all, and the Suez Canal is an important logistics channel, with a large number of merchant ships passing through. Therefore, great caution must be exercised when the submarine does not surface. Otherwise, if you are not careful, the submarine may have a close collision with the bottom of these passing ships. Moreover, this canal can be used by submarines, and the Egyptian authorities naturally have corresponding supervision methods. The installation must also be military-grade underwater sonar devices, so sneaking through it is basically impossible. Unless someone helps them hide the truth, the Greyhound organization's sphere of influence is basically in Italy. At most, because of the existence of the European Union, it also has members lurking in other countries. As for Egypt, there are basically no people from them, so the Navy feels that the possibility of the enemy taking the Suez Canal is not high. However, to be cautious, the Chief of Naval Staff still had to report the situation and at the same time ask his superiors to contact the Egyptian government for help and make preparations in advance. The Suez Canal is impassable, but there is another outlet to the sea that needs to be addressed, the Strait of Gibraltar. There are two cities on both sides of the strait, Gibraltar and Ceuta. Among them, Gibraltar is controlled by the British, the European turmoil, for historical reasons. Spain also has disputes with the United Kingdom over the ownership of Gibraltar. The city of Ceuta is a municipality under Spanish control. Therefore, Italy has to contact these two countries at the same time for assistance to ensure that the stolen submarine is trapped in the Mediterranean area. But the Mediterranean Sea is not big compared to the two oceans, and it is enough to hide a submarine. Therefore, in order to reduce the scope of activities of the submarine, Italy will next contact Turkey to ensure that the submarine will not escape to the Black Sea. Relatively speaking, unless the Greyhound organization's goal is the area along the Black Sea coast, it should not go there, because the navigation conditions there are more complicated than the above two places. After the high-level government officials learned of the notice from the Chief of Naval Staff, they immediately made arrangements according to his words and suggestions. Next, it depends on the diplomat's methods. As for how to find the location of the submarine, the Navy Chief of Staff also initially proposed a plan. Although this Soro-class submarine is equipped with air regeneration systems, such as CO2 absorbers and oxygen generators, to extend the underwater residence time, the efficiency of these systems is limited and cannot completely replace fresh air. In addition to the oxygen problem, the Soro-class submarine is not a nuclear submarine, and the crew is just a normal human being, so it will definitely need various supplies. Therefore, sooner or later the submarine will have to surface close to the surface for ventilation and resupply. This is their opportunity to recapture the submarine. Italy not only contacted various countries, but also notified two anti-biochemical organizations, F.B.C. and BSAA, about this matter. In this way, the fact that they lost a submarine was naturally exposed. But there is nothing that can be done about it. The Italian president initially thought of solving the problem by himself. After all, the family scandal should not be spread to the outside world. But since they all need to contact the United Kingdom, Spain, and Egypt to help prevent the submarine from escaping the Mediterranean, what's the point of hiding it? Why not recruit more people to help them recover the Sorrow-class submarine? Jill personally led the team, and the person who formed the team with her was a man named Parker Luciani. This man is an expert in raids, has dexterity in battle, and is a man who loves to laugh. Jill had already reported this matter to Luo Guang, because she didn't know whether she would perform tasks with the other two due to work reasons. She chose this person as her new partner from among the many members of the BSAA European branch. In addition to the other person's fighting ability, there were other reasons. That is, Gil wants to use this to examine the other party's work ability and quality, and if it is suitable and the other party is willing, let the other party take over his current position. She gave Ashley a year to fall in love, and also gave herself a year to deal with the European branch. Gil still hopes to fight side by side with Luo Guang in the future. It takes 1 or 2 days to travel from the UK to Italy, and during this time, the submarine is still nowhere to be found. Welcome to Italy, Minister Valentine. The person in charge on the Italian side personally went out to greet him. His name is Sasha K. Jestin, one of the project leaders of the Military Intelligence Agency, and he was also in charge of the Greyhound organization before. There is another project leader, and the one on that side is responsible for connecting with the FBC side. Because the two project leaders have different styles of handling cases, anyway, there are enough people, so the two decided to share intelligence and split up. The European branch of the BSAA has been communicating and cooperating with the Italian Military Intelligence Agency because of the Greyhound incident, so Gil also knows each other. She was not polite and went straight to the point. Colonel K. Jestin, has the Greyhound organization announced their demands? Several times before, the Greyhound organization had contacted the Italian government to request the release of their fellow prisoners, or to request the government to agree to some of their demands, such as closing a pharmaceutical company factory in the country, even if the production line in that factory only produced some cold medicine. No, there are no demands, K. Jestin said. Since the company's turmoil, the Greyhound organization has changed its nature, its behavior is unpredictable, and its tracks are difficult to figure out. The most regrettable thing is that the undercover mission they arranged failed, otherwise they would not be so passive now. The undercover did not make it difficult for the intelligence agency to do it, and was directly martyred and not captured by the Greyhound organization. K. Jestin said, "Come here." The details of the situation are naturally not easy to talk about in this lobby, so he asked the BSAA people to follow him to the second meeting room. The FBC arrived an hour earlier than Jill and the others, and they were meeting in the first-come first-served meeting room at this time. After listening to K. Jestin's explanation, Jill had the same question as the deputy naval staff officer, saying, "Is the other party really a member of the Greyhound organization?" "The possibility is more than 90%. K. Jestin said, "In fact, we later found the intelligence hidden by the undercover before his death. It mentioned the name of Hashim Kata. He was a new member, but relying on his ability, he became the right-hand man of the leader Jack Norman. He suspected that the undercover was discovered because of this person." "You mean he commanded the attack?" "Smart Fox, this is Kata's title in the Greyhound organization." After saying this, Jill understood what K. Jestin meant and asked, "In that case, let's act according to the assumption that the enemy is the Greyhound organization." K. Jestin nodded and said, "But this incident is mainly led by the Ministry of Defense. We BSAA don't have naval forces, and they should be responsible for the operation in the end. We are only responsible for providing anti-biological assistance, right?" K. Jestin nodded, and was very satisfied with Jill's answer. Even if this incident is related to the Greyhound organization, Italy can only take the lead in solving this incident and regain its lost face. So at most, when a biochemical monster appears, BSAA and FBC will help solve it. Meow, thank you for subscribing and voting meow. A reader's comment disappeared after I modified the sentence meow, sorry. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Meow. Chapter 499. After the leaders of both parties confirmed their leadership of the incident, formal discussions began. Before fighting the outside world, you must first settle the inside. This is an applicable approach here. So Jill asked first, I think that while searching for and confirming the location of the submarine, we must also immediately solve the problem of insiders in your military. Normal submarines have GPS positioning and navigation, but the enemy turned it off before sailing. This time, the leadership and operations personnel will basically be left to the military, so the insiders must be cleaned up. K. Justine did not mention the review in his simple briefing, saying, the Army, Navy, and even the Air Force are conducting internal reviews. Is there any result? Preliminary results show there is no mole. The Greyhound organization is betting on this. Instead of finding people from the Greyhound organization, spies from other European countries were found, which gave Italy a bargaining chip to cooperate with other countries. You said that the enemy now has a man named Zhida making suggestions. If it is true, I don't think the enemy has left any backup plan. Gil expressed his thoughts and said, spies are too destructive. A successful operation may turn into a death trap. K. Justine thought about it and felt that what the other party said made sense, so he released more details of the internal review. We use a variety of lie detectors for detection. You can't escape detection if you lie. Have you checked the polygraph? Where is the person responsible for the examination? Everything has been inspected, and the inspectors were the first ones to be inspected. It seems that we can go on endlessly, but that is just arguing. So Jill directly believed that the review process was fine, and asked instead, but the lie detector still has limitations. For example, someone may be able to tell a lie as the truth, or may what he said deviate from the actual situation. K. Justine smiled and said, if there are really people who can tell lies as the truth, our intelligence bureau will recruit these people directly. As for the latter, we will let them use the simplest yes or no to answer. Unlike Gil, he had not experienced the profoundness of Luo Guang's words, but he also knew that the same sentence might have ambiguities and others would take advantage of it. Jill nodded. Now that the other party had thought of it, she continued to think about the problem as if there was no mole in the team. Christian also knew that the other party was not questioning the working ability of their intelligence agency, but just confirming the specific situation. What was the situation with those moles before? There were too many of them, right? Especially the crew members of the stolen submarine. I heard that they have been serving on submarines for a long time and are not newcomers. There were 40 people on board the stolen Sorrow-class submarine alone. Together with others, hundreds of people had mutinied in this attack. K. Justine replied, it is true that this number is a bit large. The Ministry of National Defense is very angry about this situation in the Navy. He added, the Chief of Naval Staff therefore issued a military order himself, saying that the submarine must be brought back before the enemy launches missiles. The crew of a submarine being tied together is not as important as the submarine. Gil had a bad thought about what he added and said, aren't you worried that he will make irrational decisions for the sake of his position? The Ministry of National Defense asked us to keep an eye on him. Justin naturally understood that Jill was worried that if he came to help, he would become cannon fodder or a scapegoat for the other party to keep his job. He said, so if our military intelligence agency knows that the other party has lost his mind, we will immediately report it to the Ministry of National Defense. Gil asked, back to the attack case, you didn't take any prisoners, so did you collect any useful intelligence from the attackers? The new partner Parker had been checking the information carefully. When he heard this, he said, Captain, there are soldiers on site who heard the slogans they shouted. For a blue and clean world, K. Justine said the slogan and said, "We have also investigated the sentence, but it has not been circulated either in reality or on the internet." Gill said, "The Greyhound organization has previously used the banner of opposing urban development and protecting the environment, so it is not surprising that it would shout such a slogan." K. Justine nodded and said, "All that's left is that the transportation captain has the same tattoo as the Greyhound organization logo." Parker immediately said, "You missed two things, the tracking of the people around them, and the search of their residence." K. Justine shrugged and said, "We basically investigated once, but found nothing. We also found the transport truck drivers who were killed. The enemy's hands and feet were very clean, and not a single hair was left for me." Jill was deep in thought. The enemy struck first, moved quickly, and cleared up all the clues afterwards, which made the case more difficult. Although Skynet is meticulous, there are so many unsolved cases in the world, so this is more of a comforting word. What does your organization think of the enemy's goal of stealing a submarine? I remember that this Sorrow-class submarine is only a conventionally powered submarine and does not have nuclear strike capabilities, right? In this case, Gill can only try to estimate the approximate range of the submarine from the enemy target. There is no nuclear bomb, but the problem is that the ship they stole was modernized. It did not have a vertical missile launch tube, but the torpedo launch tube was lengthened so that it could launch Harpoon anti-ship missiles from the submarine. The data of this modernization and modification were not released, so Gill did not know this. K. Justine added, "I asked the Navy. When the submarine was stolen, 6 Harpoon missiles were taken away. Originally, this was prepared in advance to test the combat effectiveness after modification. The Sorrow-class submarine can carry a total of 6 torpedoes or missiles, but because the missiles are always placed in the launch tube, it is not easy to maintain. Therefore, when it was stolen, there were no missiles in the launch tube, and only 6 missiles in the spare missile bay were taken away." Parker asked, "Real missiles?" He held a glimmer of hope that the submarine was full of training missiles. K. Justine replied with regret, "It's not a practice missile, but the latest underwater submarine launch version, which can basically fly on the horizontal line and has extremely high concealment." "Damn it," Jill cursed angrily and said, "if the Greyhound organization becomes a traditional terrorist attack organization, it's okay. I'm afraid they will directly modify these missiles and turn them into biological and chemical virus missiles." K. Justine was stunned. He really didn't expect there was such a practice. Because he had always followed the traditional way of thinking, he thought that the Greyhound organization would use these missiles to directly threaten the countries to meet their needs, rather than doing it in vain. In a hurry, he asked 3 questions in a row. "Wait a minute, these missiles are enough to threaten the countries, right? Why do we have to replace the warheads? And do they, a biochemical terrorist organization, have the technology to replace them?" Parker analyzed, "The most difficult guidance part of the missile is ready-made, and I think the development company will not tell us even if there is a backdoor, because if it does, it will be equivalent to admitting that they have tampered with the missile, so they cannot use this to turn off the guidance function of the missile." K. Justine did not refute and asked the question that the other party had not answered yet. Jill said, "The missiles you installed are only for anti-ship use after all. I don't need to tell you which one can cause more damage than the biochemical virus missiles, right?" Thinking of the Greyhound organization's previous record of creating biochemical crises in the city, K. Justine had no way to refute and immediately reported this possibility to his superiors. It just so happened that the FBC had come to a similar conclusion. Therefore, the Military Intelligence Bureau immediately reported after a brief review, asking departments across the country to prepare for possible biochemical crises. At the same time, taking this opportunity, the Military Intelligence Bureau and the Chiefs of Staff of the 3 armed forces jointly implemented the screening plan and continued to secretly examine whether there were any traitors in the Army. A week of anxiety passed. The Greyhound organization still did not contact any country to make its own demands, nor did it launch a biochemical crisis incident anywhere. Jill and her team's investigation also yielded nothing, and often the clues were cut off when they found a certain place. Instead, the beekeeper organization took advantage of the fact that the European branch of the BSAA and the European branch of the FBC focused on Italy to create several biochemical crises in other countries. Italy got the bargaining chips and finally got the countries that controlled various waterways to agree to help intercept the stolen submarine Felter for free. The Mediterranean Sea is not as big as the oceans, but it is also the largest land-based sea in the world. They called in satellites, sent out patrol fleets, and asked more allies to help after complaining to NATO. Finally, the countries along the coast of North Africa also negotiated, and the other party said they would help. This week, the Italian Ministry of Defense also issued a reward, intending to let civilian ships at sea join the search for submarines to reduce the enemy's hiding space. Anti-Justice Italy has exhausted all means and strength to find it, but found nothing, and even made a mistake, treating other countries' submarines as stolen submarines. Other countries will not help to find submarines all the time, because sending a fleet to sea costs a lot, and Italy obviously cannot afford it all the time. Kajestan has also been suffering from severe hair loss during this period, and the whole person looks a little haggard. After exchanging intelligence with another person in charge, he found that the other party had no new progress, which made him even more worried. If he uses one word to describe his current feelings, it is torture. Jill also understood the other party's thoughts and took the initiative to speak, letting the meeting continue. Okay, Kajestan, the other party's current approach is to deliberately exhaust our patience, and you have fallen into the trap. She took the initiative to find the other party for this meeting, but she didn't expect that the other party's mental state has become so bad. How can I cheer up in this situation? The president has issued the latest instructions to all departments. I only have 1 week left to find the submarine, otherwise I will be replaced and my career will end. Kajestan was weak. It was not easy for him to climb to his current position in the intelligence agency. Now that he encountered such a helpless thing and it was not his fault, he was unwilling and felt deeply powerless. Parker took over and said, I checked before. The self-sustaining capacity of the submarine is more than 30 days. They have to hide underwater. It is normal that we can't find it. Self-sustaining capacity refers to the maximum number of days that the consumables such as fresh water and food carried on the ship can maintain the ship's independent operation at sea. Unlike torpedoes and missiles, the food and water in submarines are canned or bagged, which do not need to be replaced frequently, so the submarine warehouse is usually filled with them. Jill asked, why are they so anxious? Kajestan sighed and said, the big guys above have their own considerations. That being said, he still explained the reason, saying, as you said before, the other side is consuming our patience and wearing down our will. The people above can't stand it either. To be precise, the people above can't stand the financial expenditure of searching for the stolen submarine. Parker didn't understand, the president won't be replaced until 2006, why is he so anxious? It's not that he thinks the submarine theft is not urgent, but that this matter can't be rushed. As long as the submarine finds a suitable position to squat and enter a hidden state, the underwater sonar will not work, and you can only bet that you will be caught when the other side surfaces. Italy is a country with satellites, and there is a high probability that it will be captured at that time. Otherwise, even if you know where the submarine is hiding underwater, it is a pipe dream to want to take the submarine back intact. Kajestan waved his hand and said, anyway, don't talk nonsense. Jill, you asked me to come here to cheer me up, didn't you? We have 2 pieces of news, one good and one bad. Let's talk about the bad news first. Jill nodded and said, the beekeeper organization has appeared again to harm the world. I will bring some people back to host the finale. She was worried about the lack of manpower, so she brought half of the branch agents here. Then she turned to Parker and said, "Let him take care of things here." Okay, this bad news is not too bad for Kajestan. Anyway, before the submarine is found, no matter how many people BSAA leaves in Italy, it will not be effective. Recently, the agents of BSAA and FBC are so idle that they can only go to various parts of Italy to train local military and police departments. But one thing is one thing, BSAA training is charged. It's not that BSAA is taking the opportunity to collect money, it's just to subsidize B.S.A.'s expenses. Kajestan asked, "What's the good news?" Jill said, "I contacted the African branch of BSAA to help monitor the ports along the Mediterranean coast of North Africa." Before she finished speaking, the other party shouted excitedly, "Did you find the submarine?" "Don't be excited, I told you a long time ago when I found the submarine." Kajestan said, "That's right." Jill didn't waste any words, took out a USB flash drive from his backpack, and said, "There is a tracking program inside, which is all for tracking and locating those irregular ships." "No wonder you brought gloves here today." Christian's eyes flashed, and he understood the other party's intention, which was not to leave any handle. And in order to keep confidentiality, this conference room did not install any monitoring and listening equipment. Back to this incident, since the submarine cannot be tracked, then track and monitor those ships. If the submarine needs to be supplied, it must need the help of a supply ship. Regular ships have positioning and tracking, so they don't need tracking programs, but irregular ships don't want others to know their location, so the BSAA will install trackers on these ships. This is not good news, right? Thinking about how to improve this method, Kajestan was in the mood to joke. "Isn't it good news to find a method?" Jill continued. "The head of the African branch also asked me to convey a message to you." Kajestan asked curiously, "What message?" He or the Italian government never thought of asking the African branch of the BSAA for help from the beginning to the end. Even if it was not related to the Greyhound organization, the Military Intelligence Bureau would not ask Jill and the FBC. Can the BSAA people also get the reward for the wanted warrant? Luo Guang saw that there was no special restriction on the wanted warrant, but Italy was a fence-sitter during World War I and World War II, so he asked Jill to help him confirm it. Meow, thank you for subscribing and voting meow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 500. Luo Guang was waiting for Jill's call back in the branch office. He had many sources of information, so he knew the submarine was stolen on the day of the attack before things got serious. Under the isolation of seawater, his ability to control electricity and the ability to generate electromagnetic waves could not directly confirm the location of the submarine on the seabed from the sea surface. Submarines have appeared in Resident Evil games or CG movies, but it seems that no submarine was stolen from Italy. The current situation of the Greyhound organization also confused him, and it was much stronger than the organization of the same name in the game. The Greyhound organization in the game was also sponsored by FBC, so it was able to create the Terra Grigia panic, but Luo Guang had confirmed that the theft of the submarine had nothing to do with Morgan. Therefore, he could not predict the location of the submarine directly now. He had no clue like Jill and the others, and could only use a stupid method full of metaphysics to find the submarine. The latest clone, named Falcardo Iaconelli, was already in Ceuta, North Africa. Because he was operating in a Spanish city, in order to hide his identity, he used the appearance of a local resident this time, and his height and weight were average, and he also had a standard passerby face that made people forget him at first sight. Luo Guang bought a sea boat and fishing tools, and sent his clone out to sea to fish. Everyone says that fishermen never come back empty-handed, and they can catch anything except fish, which is a metaphysical bonus. Of course, Luo Guang didn't really want to use a fishing rod to catch a submarine. Technology changes life. Although the Mediterranean Sea also has pollution problems, it still maintains a good clarity, and the overall underwater visibility is also good. So Luo Guang checked some of the deep-sea investigation technology of the X organization through the Donald family's channels, and then copied and packaged it and sent it to Hong Huang, asking her to urgently develop an underwater scanning wired drone. Hong Huang also found that she liked to develop various equipment recently, and as expected, she became the director of Luo Guang's equipment development department. Although it has a scanning function, it mainly uses a high-precision and high-resolution camera to shoot the seabed situation, and then uses sonar technology and Hong Huang to identify whether there is a submarine hiding. After modernization, the diving depth of the Saro-class submarine is only about 300 meters, so using wired control has more advantages than disadvantages. The Fukado clone is now waiting for the scanning drone made by the Red Emperor to be delivered. It is now night, and the clone who is lying in the hotel room closest to the port to rest did not wait for the scanning drone, but waited for 2 missiles across the sky. The 2 missiles fell quickly and finally hit the city, but there was no particularly loud explosion. Luo Guang still has 2 clones active, namely the GIMZ Boss Wusong clone and the clone who is conducting research at the GIMZ Research Institute. It is worth mentioning that the anthelmintic and insecticide developed by Lewis for the Plaka parasite is nearing the end of research and will soon be available for mass production and market launch. After several mental power enhancements, he can now control up to 5 clones at the same time for daily actions. As for full-strength combat, he can control up to 2 clones including the main body. It seems that there are still many places available, and it is not a problem to control 1 more clone, but being able to operate does not mean that Luo Guang likes to do it. Even if his mental strength can hold up, he will feel tired in his heart. Luo Guang, a biochemical crisis has occurred in Suda. Ashley knocked on the door and came in, and immediately told him the news. Luo Guang was stunned. His clone was in Suda, and he immediately began to control the clone there. While controlling the clone, he asked Ashley to report the situation. Suda is holding a carnival tonight, and the biochemical crisis happened to break out where people gathered. Do you know the cause and source of the outbreak? The caller said something fell from the sky, and a thick fog appeared after the explosion, and then someone inhaled the smoke and turned into a zombie. Ashley added, one caller said it was a missile, and he took a video of it, saying that the thing that fell from the sky had a tail flame. I arranged someone to go there before you notify him to find the caller. Luo Guang did not hide the fact that he sent Fukado's clone from Ashley, and he also bluntly said that he sent him to earn the bounty offered by Italy. He is not short of money, but no one thinks that money is too much, and he still wants 1 million euros. I know. Ashley wrote it down directly. Luo Guang continued to issue orders and said, also, you let our troops be ready to set off at any time. I will contact the Spanish government. Suda is located on the African continent, but it belongs to a European country. According to current regulations, Spain can freely choose the European branch or African branch of the BSAA, or even the FBC to handle this crisis. Luo Guang called the president directly, and the first sentence he said was about the biochemical crisis in Suda, and the second sentence was to ask the other party what choice he would make. The other party had not slept yet, but did not answer immediately, only saying that he would call him later to tell him the answer. Biochemical crisis incidents cannot be used as a joke, so the Spanish president did not think Luo Guang was joking. But as the president of a country, he must first understand the situation clearly before deciding which troops to use, so the president then shook people to confirm the situation without saying anything. But in Luo Guang's view, the other party was right to do so, but the delay was likely to result in the people who could be saved not being saved in the end. Soon, Ashley arranged the things and looked up at Luo Guang. In general, in order to avoid gossip, Ashley would work at the secretary's desk outside. Only in an emergency, in order to convey the order as quickly as possible, she would stay directly at the temporary workstation in the minister's office. There were also office equipment such as computers and internal telephones there. Although it was a temporary position, Ashley still arranged it almost exactly the same as the seats outside. She asked a little worriedly, "Will you go to this biochemical crisis?" Whether she was worried or not had nothing to do with Luo Guang's strength, but she was naturally worried about her lover going on a dangerous mission. Luo Guang shook his head and told the Spanish president's reply, saying, "We don't know whether this matter belongs to us or not. Do our people need to leave immediately after they are ready? Let's go. I have communicated with Morocco. We will first block the outbreak area and rescue the survivors who escaped. The Moroccan army will also go with us to cooperate." Luo Guang would not wait for the Spanish president's reply before sending troops, so as soon as the call ended, he turned around and went to find the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Morocco. He would not violate the rules, but save as many people as possible within the scope of the rules. At this time, after hanging up the phone with the caller, the Ficado clone in Suda began to pack up his equipment and prepare to go to the other party's apartment. Spain allows legal gun ownership, but only those with hunting or sports licenses can hold it. The clone now only has a fake identity, and does not even have the identity of a BSAA agent, so naturally he does not have these gun licenses. Rightward arrow. But this does not mean that he cannot carry a gun. Ficado's violation of the law has nothing to do with Luo Guang. In order to avoid exposing the relationship between the clone and himself, the Ficado clone used the pistol provided by the local Round Table organization as a weapon for this mission. Speaking of the Round Table organization, we have to mention Ji Xiu, a friend that Luo Guang met as Wu Song. In the previous corporate turmoil that affected the world, Ji Xiu's family did not suffer much loss. Because compared with other black forces, their families' death squads and combatants have basically received anti-biochemical training from the GIMZ troops, and have also received notifications to immediately check whether there are parasites in the bodies of internal personnel. So there is no need for the GIMZ troops to provide VIP rescue services. Ji Xiu led the team to solve the parasitic zombies that appeared in the family. Ji Xiu, who has foresight, has now taken over his father's scepter and become the head of their family, and has made his family move to a higher level in this organization. Wu Song's clone also attended the other party's inauguration ceremony at the time, and used his danger perception ability to help him block the enemy's assassination. So now Luo Guang asked Wu Song's clone to tell the other party that Ficado's clone could go to the Round Table organization service point of the Jixia family to get all the weapons he needed. Although he could get high-powered weapons, Ficado's clone finally only took a Desert Eagle and spare bullet magazines, as well as a number of grenades and flash bombs. Because these things are small in size, they can be carried with you and are very easy to hide. Now it is no different from before. The damage caused by some of his clones' attacks is no worse than bullets. Even when facing giant biochemical monsters, the clone has a way to deal with the enemy. After the Ficado clone is ready, he will leave the hotel. After receiving the text message notification, the hotel immediately started the emergency plan and temporarily closed the main door. Now there are more and more biochemical crisis incidents. In order to compete for business, this kind of hotel that is well prepared to deal with biochemical crises is becoming more and more popular. The clone went up to the manager to negotiate and see if he could leave here while ensuring the safety of the hotel. 10 minutes later, Luo Guang's original body received a call from the Spanish president. At first, the Spanish president actually preferred the FBC, which had former Red Claws personnel. But he was one step behind the British Prime Minister. The FBC soldiers in Europe are now heading to Gibraltar, opposite Ceuta. There was also an attack there, and the cause of the outbreak seemed to be exactly the same as that of Ceuta. People witnessed missiles and other things falling from the sky. Of course, GIMZ is also their old partner. After all, Samus is now working in GIMZ. The problem is that even if GIMZ expands its forces, it is unrealistic for this number of people to solve the biochemical crisis in a big city. It's not that they can't eliminate all the biochemical monsters, but that the lack of manpower leads to insufficient rescue capabilities. There is no point in cleaning up a city without citizens. Originally, the Spanish government also stationed troops there. GIMZ plus the local Spanish troops are enough to deal with this crisis. But one of the missiles fired at Ceuta was aimed at the local army base, which damaged the strength of the local garrison. The enemy did not fire at the naval base, probably because the guns of the naval ships could not be aimed at Ceuta. And the navy without ships, not to mention the difference in soldiers, they do not have as complete land warfare weapons as the army, such as tanks and armored vehicles. Finally, after repeated consideration, the Spanish president had no choice but to let the BSAA African branch carry out the anti-biological mission in Ceuta. After all, the troops of the African branch of BSAA have another advantage, that is, they are closer than the GIMZ troops in South Africa. Although Luo Guang didn't like the other party's previous behavior, there was no deep hatred between the two sides, so he told the other party about Morocco. I know, thank you. The Spanish president was shocked and sweating. As an autonomous city of Spain in North Africa, Ceuta has always been spied on by neighboring countries, and Spain stationed troops in the city for this reason. Morocco has applied to the United Nations several times to request Ceuta to join its country, but all attempts so far have failed. In addition to Spain's strong response, there is another important reason why Ceuta was not incorporated into Morocco, that is, the citizens of Ceuta recognize that the city belongs to Spain. Some things have to be prevented. If Spain relaxes a little in this biochemical crisis incident, allowing the Moroccan army to enter Ceuta in the name of rescuing civilians and gaining the support of the citizens, it will be troublesome. Ceuta is one of the cities that controls the Strait of Gibraltar, and the economic benefits it brings are very considerable, so it cannot be lost. Luo Guang heard the other party's thanks, but his expression did not change. Politicians' thanks should be treated as farts, and you must not mistakenly think that the other party owes you a favor. Luo Guang turned and said, then we will start to send troops. In fact, the soldiers of the African branch have already set off. Sorry to bother you, we will immediately organize troops to support Ceuta. The Spanish president suddenly thought of one thing while saying this, that is, the autonomous region of Gibraltar was also caught in a biochemical crisis. But compared with them, Britain is much farther away from Gibraltar. Even if the other party is also a member of the European Union and NATO, it is not a simple matter to cross the Spanish territory to Gibraltar. Gibraltar was originally a territory belonging to Spain, but was later defeated by Britain in the War of Succession, so it lost this territory. Later, Gibraltar also held a referendum, but the citizens, like Ceuta, supported British rule by a large majority. Spain was very upset about this, so the president wanted to use this biochemical crisis to see if he could take back Gibraltar. By then, their country would be able to completely control the Strait of Gibraltar and would not have to share the rights and interests here with the troublemaker Britain. Luo Guang had no interest in these things. After confirming the initiative of the action with the Spanish president, he asked Ashley to notify the troops to enter Ceuta directly instead of staying in Morocco. Next, he had to tell Morocco about it. Although the other party didn't say much, the fact that he hung up the phone directly made Luo Guang understand that the other party must be in a bad mood. Perhaps if he didn't do both at the beginning and didn't go to Morocco, but waited for the Spanish president's reply first, he wouldn't be hated. But if he was given another choice, Luo Guang would not change his approach. Everything was still based on solving the biochemical crisis and saving the survivors. Besides, the Kingdom of Morocco is not a big country, so it is not afraid of it. Meow. I originally planned to write about the political and diplomatic changes brought about by the biochemical crisis, but I was still worried about getting caught, so I never wrote about it. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 501. Biohazard incidents occurred in the two cities guarding the Strait of Gibraltar at almost the same time. There was no need for Kjestine and others from the Military Intelligence Bureau to report it. The Italian government received the news immediately and reacted. The location of the stolen submarine must be near the Strait of Gibraltar, and the plan is to use the biochemical crisis to allow it to escape from the Mediterranean Sea and enter the Atlantic Ocean. By then, the submarine will be like a ghost and its location will be basically impossible to confirm. By then, all coastal cities will have to live on tenterhooks. Without saying a word, the Italian president ordered the entire navy to attack the Strait of Gibraltar. He also contacted Spain and the United Kingdom and asked them to block the strait and outflank the stolen submarine. Based on the information received, Spain suspected that a stolen submarine had launched the attack, so it naturally agreed to the other party's request. The British naturally share the same hatred, but they still made a request, that is, to allow Italy to send the army by ship to Gibraltar at the same time to assist the FBC in solving the local biochemical crisis. They obviously also thought about the issue of the ownership of the city of Gibraltar. If they send soldiers from the mainland island, they will definitely be pulled by Spain. The FBC soldiers have already set off, and Britain is still looking for other people to help. It's not that it doesn't believe in the F.B.C's combat effectiveness, but it hopes to resolve this crisis as soon as possible to avoid being taken advantage of by the Spanish. It is now clear that the Greyhound organization must have used the Resident Evil incident to destroy the blockade of the Strait of Gibraltar, and then used the chaos to leave the Mediterranean directly. Since the enemy submarine has chosen to leave the Mediterranean, it means one thing: the Greyhound organization's target of attack is not Italy. Another project leader has followed the FBC to Gibraltar, and Kjestine can only stay at home idle and wait for news. He is not jealous of the other party, as long as he can solve the matter. Also staying here is Parker. He felt that there was no need for these BSAA agents to stay here anymore, so he might as well go back to assist Jill in dealing with the biological crisis caused by the beekeeper organization. Because the European branch of BSAA went to solve the trouble caused by the beekeeper organization, the Spanish president did not consider asking them to help solve the problem in the city of Ceuta. Thinking of this, Parker called Jill and asked if they needed to evacuate. By the way, he didn't tell Kjestine about this before calling. After thinking about it, Gil did not agree with Parker's suggestion and said, "The biohazard in Gibraltar is handled by the FBC, while the African branch in Ceuta on the other side takes over, and we do not need to appear." She continued, "We have enough manpower now, and we don't need you to come back to help." "But it's okay for me to just wait here," Parker said. Jill explained, "I was worried that other accidents would happen later, so I asked you to stay here." "What accident?" "Since the stolen submarine is leaving the Mediterranean, the target of the attack shouldn't be Italy, right? You stay here to build a communication bridge between our BSAA and the Italian Military Intelligence Agency to ensure that we get the latest information." Gil continued to explain, "The Greyhound organization is, after all, a biochemical terrorist organization established in Italy. According to records, the crises created by this organization are all in Italy. Who knows whether the enemy will attack in the east again?" Parker nodded and said, "I understand what you mean. You are worried that the Greyhound organization will counterattack." This point indeed had to be guarded against, but even if he knew that the enemy was coming back, he seemed unable to stop the enemy's missiles. No wonder the minister asked him to serve as a bridge. Gil said, "Yes, you have also read the previous report of the Greyhound organization. The enemy took advantage of the company's chaos to recruit many new members, and now the army is strong." Parker patted his cheek and said seriously, "I know. But next time you have a mission, you must give me priority, otherwise it will be meaningless for me to change jobs from FBC. Jill knew that the other party jumped to BSAA because there were too many FBC agents, the biohazard missions were unevenly distributed, and Parker had been wasting his time on soy sauce. So she reassured, "Didn't I bring you here for this incident? I just didn't expect that this incident would be so difficult and we wouldn't have a chance to appear." Parker has a heart to shine on the front line, but this does not conflict with Jill's desire for him to replace him as minister. Not only her, but Chris, the director of the North American division, also personally led the team to solve various biohazard incidents. Luo Guang took her to travel around back then, so now her subordinates can run the entire department on their own and solve biochemical crises even if the minister is a mascot. Therefore, Jill's first requirement for a successor is someone who wants to solve the biochemical crisis and ensure that the branch focuses on anti-biochemical matters. In the Hotel Insida, the manager was still trying to persuade Luo Guang's Facardo to stay in the hotel. "Our hotel is prepared for a city-scale biohazard event and has enough food and water for all guests to eat for a month." The manager tried his best to persuade him, not because Facardo was their VIP customer, or because the other party had opened a presidential suite but hadn't checked out yet, but because he was worried that no one would pay him if he died. The hotel spent so much energy to prepare for the biochemical crisis, just to play a role at this moment, and then use the rescue of the guests as publicity. Luo Guang controlled the clone to see the situation, and thought that he would have to prepare BSAA agent certificates for the clone in the future, so that the other party would probably not pester him. "I know you have prepared countermeasures, but I have to leave here for urgent matters. I have to save people." Facado's clone looked anxious. While Luo Guang controlled the clone to go downstairs, he thought of the excuse he would use next. The clone continued, "I can't give up my fiancée." "But sir, I remember you checked in alone." The manager obviously didn't believe him. Facado stamped his feet in anxiety and said, "That's because my fiancée had something to do, so she asked me to come here first. Do I need to joke with my life?" The manager couldn't help but doubt his judgment when he heard this. The other party did come alone, but there was no law that stipulated that another person could not be late, and there was no need for the other party to lie. He fell silent, but the hotel's rules were like this. It was his responsibility not to let guests get hurt. So he could only reject the other party's request again and resolutely refuse to open the door reinforced with steel plates. Facado sighed, but he did not give up. He would choose other ways to leave here later, and try his best to ensure that the hotel's anti-biochemical defense measures would not be damaged. The manager saw this and thought that the guest had given up the life-threatening behavior. He said, "Our hotel is counting the number of people in the hotel. Please gather in the banquet hall on the 3rd floor. Our hotel has bought a BSAA scanner to conduct physical examinations for all people." Facado did not speak, turned around and walked to the 3rd floor, while thinking about the opportunity to leave. As for the person who called the police, he also sent a text message to the other party, saying directly that he was being dragged by trouble and needed some time. The person who called the police seemed to be a survivalist or something like that. He quickly replied to the text message, saying that he was very safe and could hold on for a while, and asked Facado to be careful. In this case, Luo Guang gave up the idea of controlling the clone to hit the manager who was leading the way in front with a club. The manager pushed open the door, and what he saw was not the arranged tables, nor the guests who were already in place waiting to gather and chatting in groups of 3 or 2. Instead, he heard the desperate screams of humans and a terrifying zombie who turned his head to look at him. The banquet hall was so soundproof that the manager didn't hear any sound before opening the door, and he kept introducing the hotel's anti-biochemical measures to Facado. The zombie who found the manager and Facado rushed over with a howl. Although the manager had received a week of anti-biochemical training, the scene in front of him made him dumbfounded. He couldn't remember what he had learned at all, and naturally had no reaction at all. The hotel owner's plan didn't intend to let his employees fight zombies at all. Most of the funds were used to renovate and upgrade the hotel, so the manager learned it in a private school. Ficado pulled the manager's collar back hard, and with his other hand, he inserted a table knife into the zombie's eye socket, stirring and destroying the zombie's brain. Then the clone kicked the dead enemy away and closed the door. By the way, the knife was the one he used to eat dinner in the guest room. The Ficado clone faithfully expressed Luo Guang's current emotions, frowning. He was sure that the hotel was not attacked by missiles, so where did these zombies come from? Although it was just a simple encounter, he had analyzed the types of these zombies, which were the T-virus zombies that the Beekeeper organization liked to use the most. Of course, the Greyhound organization had also used this virus, but the other party's virus warehouse had been destroyed, so there should be no stock. What should we do? The manager sat on the ground, looking at Ficado with lingering fear. The clone looked at the other party's legs trembling, while holding the door to prevent the zombies from running out, and said, "Hurry up and find something to lock here, don't let them run out." The manager stood up and said quickly, "Thank you, I will go find a lock, or a stick or something like that." As long as the door handle is inserted, the zombies can't escape for the time being, and the lifesaver in front of him doesn't have to hold the door all the time. Luo Guang asked Ashley, "Give me the other phone records of the police." While he was talking, his hands did not stop. Ashley also needed some time to sort out the information, and Luo Guang did not urge her. He was also confirming the information in his hands and sorting out the timeline. The two organizations seemed to be cooperating with each other. The Greyhound organization attacked the naval base and stole a submarine. A few days later, the Beekeeper organization was making trouble all over Europe, attracting the attention of the European Anti-Biochemical Organization. The reason why he specifically mentioned all over Europe is that apart from Europe, the Beekeeper organization has only created biochemical crisis incidents in Europe from last week to now. Ceuta is an African city, and the T-virus is not difficult to obtain. It can be said that it is the largest biochemical virus in the world, so he cannot confirm whether the biochemical crisis incident in the hotel was created by the Beekeeper organization. Luo Guang temporarily assumed that this was done by the Beekeeper organization. From this point of view, the Greyhound organization attacked the two cities. In addition to covering its own departure from the Mediterranean, it was also covering the Beekeeper organization to carry out biochemical crisis incidents. Although there was no evidence, he still sent a text message to Jill to remind her. The Beekeeper organization may be behind the incident in Italy. Luo Guang did not explain the specific reason, so as not to interfere with Jill's judgment. Jill was in tune with him and did not ask for the reason, but only replied with a received message. "I have sorted it out and sent it to you." After Ashley finished this, she heard Luo Guang's words again, "How long will it take for our people to arrive?" She immediately replied, "The nearest soldiers will take at least an hour to reach the destination. Morocco has not deliberately hindered our troops." Ashley is always confirming the distance and arrival time of each unit. Not all soldiers of the African branch stay at the headquarters waiting for orders. The headquarters is still where the large troops are stationed, but there are 7 small sub-bases scattered throughout Africa. In this way, when encountering a small-scale biochemical crisis, the problem can be solved by the troops of the sub-base alone, and there is no need to send out a large force every time. "I know," Luo Guang replied and continued to check the information sorted out by Ashley. He looked at the computer screen and said to himself, "It's really different." From the content of the calls to report the biochemical crisis, there are 2 sources of the biochemical crisis in Ceuta. The first is naturally the Harpoon missile with the virus, and the second should be the situation that his clone encountered in the hotel, where the people around him suddenly mutated. Luo Guang thought about the current situation and asked Hong Huang to secretly take a walk around the FBC server. He wanted to confirm whether the situation in Gibraltar was the same as that in Ceuta. Only by collecting as much information as possible can we better infer the enemy's situation. Ficado's clone waited for the manager, but the other party did not run away directly, and brought a waitress. The three of them worked together to close the door, and the manager also wrote "There are zombies behind the door" on the door with a marker. Ficado's clone asked, "Didn't you say you bought a scanner to check? Why didn't you find out that some of these guests were infected with the virus in advance?" He had just seen the scanner. The zombie he had killed was from the hotel. He had been standing next to the scanner from the beginning. The manager didn't know either. He was anxious. Finally, he slapped his forehead and said, "We can go and check the surveillance. The banquet hall has all-round surveillance." Ficado pointed to the thing on the other's waist and said, "Use the intercom to notify other staff in the hotel not to open this." As for the matter of summoning the survivors, Luo Guang planned to wait until the entire hotel situation was confirmed through surveillance. "I have notified others. I know where the surveillance room is. Follow me." Although the manager was still a little nervous, his actions had returned to normal. There were several reasons why he came back, such as he was responsible for the guests as a manager. But the most important reason was that he felt that the guest in front of him was a strong thigh that could carry him alive. And the waitress didn't say anything. She just followed the two silently. Meow, thank you for subscribing and voting me out.